Working. Good morning. I thought I'd test first. Good morning. I'm Dr. Laverne Lewis, TriMet's Board President. Welcome to TriMet's Board of Directors meeting for March 26, 2025. We are gathered again here at One Main Place in our TriMet boardroom for our March 2025 board meeting. We are also live streaming the meeting on YouTube. 5 members, yes, one, that's virtual, are present at this time, and Director Graham has advised that she will be just a moment late. She had some other business, and Director Kellogg will not be with us this morning. However, we should have 6. One is on their way up the steps, elevator. And considering for all of our resolutions, we will have a quorum. Thank you for being with us today. I know we could be out looking at the blossoms and everything else, or even forest bathing, but we are here. Thank you for giving us your time. We'll begin with the public forum for those who are present and have signed up to testify. Members of the public who wish to perform testimony but could not be here may join us virtually after we have heard from those who are present and have signed up to testify. For all of those offering testimony, please direct your comments to TriMet and our transit-related services rather than other topics. We also ask that your comments be limited to 3 minutes. You will note that there is a timer above some of the screens, and that will help you to comply, and that's very helpful for those who will be following you in our time, and we ask that you respect that time. If you're unable to limit your time or you have other comments, please do so in writing. TriMet staff can provide an email address for you to send those comments to the board. We do get them and we do read them. Now I will call to up to testify at the table, 2 at a time. Our first 2 people testifying this morning is, let's see, we have Daniel Lambert. Come right up front. And then just grab a seat there. Yes, there you go. And staff will show you how to turn on your microphone when we're ready. The next person is Allison Johnston. Allison, welcome. Come on up and join with Daniel. Okay, Daniel, I invite you to go first. Press your mic on, so very good.
Testing. Excellent. Board, Sam, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Good morning, my name is Daniel Lambert, and I'm here in response to the March 6th Portland Mercury article addressing serious issues with the Safety Response Team program operated by Portland Patrol Incorporated. The article exposed valid concerns of workplace safety failures, retaliation, and lack of oversight, as well as poor leadership. But I want to be very clear, what was published is just the tip of the iceberg for this issue. We're talking about a documented pattern of union busting, suppression of internal complaints and whistleblowers, and other illegal labor practices. Additional media investigations are underway, and thus, this isn't just an internal staffing issue. It's a public safety concern, a public credibility issue, and a moral question as to how we handle behavioral crises on our transit systems. The community, the workers, and the public deserve better. I'm not here only to raise questions, but offer solution. It's time to transition from PPI and SRT model to the model that was asked for in the first place with the Reimagined Public Safety Program, with public health-informed, trauma-informed crisis response team. I've worked with folks to make the Pathway Transit Assistance Team a fully scoped, contract-ready program built around EMTs, behavioral health clinicians, and peer mentors. Training rooted in compassion, de-escalation, and clinical readiness. Transparent data collection and built-in community accountability, as well as KPIs, key performance indicators. It's a program designed with the public in mind, not just as a liability shield or an enforcement mechanism. I encourage this board to reassess its current vendor relationship and to support the exploration of PTAT as a public alternative that aligns with TriMet's values and the community's needs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Okay. Allison?
Hi, is it on? Okay. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Allison Johnston. I'm 23 years old and I live in Wilsonville. I'm here today to urge you to keep the 96 bus line running directly from the Tualatin Park and Ride to downtown Portland. For me, this bus is not just a commuter route, it is my independence and a shining light of accessibility. I even partially owe my existence to this bus line. I've been visually impaired since I was 12. This means I do not have the luxury of being able to drive to work. I take the Wilsonville Smart Bus to the Tualatin Park and Ride, catch the 96 into downtown, and then ride the MAX to my office building. Then I do the opposite on the way home. The 96 is my connection to the world. It is the only reasonable way I can get to my job downtown. If the service on this route is changed, my commute will likely stretch to 90 minutes each way, turning a commute that's already an hour one way into something unsustainable. Reliable, direct transit is not a luxury for me. It is a necessity. Beyond my personal need, this bus line carries a deep significance for my family. Nearly 30 years ago, my parents met while working downtown. After their first date, they discovered they'd been riding the same 96 bus every day for years. They got to know each other on this bus, commuting to work together every day from the Tualatin Park and Ride to the World Trade Center and the Standard Building. Next year will be their 25th wedding anniversary. If it weren't for this route, I might not even be here speaking to you today. The 96 has connected more than just bus stops. It's connected people, families, and livelihoods for decades. I understand that decisions must be made, but changing service on the 96 would disproportionately impact those of us who have no other options, especially people with disabilities in the southern Portland metro area. Public transit should serve the people who need it most, those who depend on it. I urge you to consider not just ridership numbers on a spreadsheet, but the lives that will be affected by this service change. Please keep the 96 running for me, for those with disabilities, and for the many others who depend on this route every single day. I urge you to keep the 96 line running directly from the Tualatin Park and Ride to downtown Portland. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison, and thank you, Daniel. The next two for public testimony is Juan Cummings. Come on. Thank you. And John Carr. John, there we are. Thank you for coming this morning for testimony time. Okay, have your, there you go, very good. Go ahead, Juan.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Juan Cummings. I'm the chair of the South Tabor Neighborhood Association. 3 weeks ago, my 86-year-old neighbor, Roger Lee, took the TriMet Line 9 home from a Trailblazers game. He was a season ticket holder for 33 years. When he stepped off the bus at Southeast 67th and tried to cross Southeast Powell, he was struck and killed by a speeding motorcycle. The communities of South Tabor and Foster Powell have been appealing to government for years to stop our neighbors from dying. I'm not here just for Roger Lee. I'm also here because, sadly, we've lost track of the number of the people that have died on Powell in our neighborhood. This section of Powell is ranked in the 100th percentile of high injury corridors and has a 10.3 fatal crash per mile rate. Every day I see people having to rush and scurry across Powell, dodging traffic and fearing for their lives. That should not be a normal part of coming home. Families shouldn't have to worry about their loved ones making it home safe from work or school. There have been tax dollars available for safe crossings on Powell that were funded 9 years ago. We've been told work is finally starting this spring, but we find it unacceptable that the death toll is greater than 0 while we waited for this project. Most of the deaths on PAL over the last 8 years have occurred within 2 blocks of where the safe crossing should have been. We're asking TriMet to actively pursue all options and solutions that will stop the death toll from rising. It is so sad that a resident does everything they can using and supporting public transit and being a good neighbor, only to be left in danger for the last part of their trip getting home. The responsibility of TriMet does not end when the bus door closes. We look forward to timely completion of the projects, but expect to see a focus of transit rider safety from TriMet in the future in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you. John?
Thank you so much. Good morning, Director Lewis, board members, and General Manager DeSue. So I'm going to pick up on, I'm John Carr. I'm the Vice Chair of the South Tabor Neighborhood Association. This is my 4th time testifying before the board with regards to the Powell Division Safety and Access to Transit Project, which is 6 years behind schedule currently. We're very happy that to hear that it should be breaking ground soon, but disheartened that it has taken this long. That delay is a lot. We met as a neighborhood after the death of our friend Roger Lee, and people came together and were just like, what can we ask of our elected officials? What can we ask of the transportation and transit agencies to do in reaction to this? And came up with some ideas. We're not traffic engineers, right? And we know that there's budget crisis and funds are limited everywhere. But we have some ideas of things, and I've submitted them in writing to you as well. But just want to come here to reinforce some of that to you. First is expand the scope of the project. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous given how challenging it's been for TriMet to coordinate with ODOT and PBOD on getting it moving forward, but there are so many instances, particularly this one on this crossing at 67th, which is unmarked, unsignaled, unlit, but it's really a community hub for our neighborhood, and there's a bus stop on either side. So it's a safety and access to transit project. Expand it, work with ODOT, add that into it. Second would be to close the bus pullouts. This part of Powell was designed for speeds of 45 miles an hour, I think, when it was originally designed, sort of a highway, and there are bus pullouts. There's no need for that now. According to TriMet's safety, bus stop design guidelines, that's not warranted for speeds under 40 miles per hour. So with the bus not pulling out as frequently, it would help regulate the traffic the other vehicle traffic that is on there. It would speed up bus times through the neighborhood. We are totally open to that as a neighborhood, so please consider that, and that's something you could do relatively inexpensively. Third would be for you as individuals, in whatever individual capacity you have, but also TriMet as an agency, call for the immediate jurisdictional transfer of Powell. We know, looking at 82nd Avenue, nothing really is going to get done as long as there's multiple jurisdictions at play, and ODOT has that final say on everything. We know ODOT wants this, PBOT wants this, TriMet, I'm sure, wants this as well. The neighbors want this. Call for that in budget meetings and conversations with Metro legislators, the governor. We'd appreciate that. Fourth would be initiate a bus-only lane project on TriMet. And then fifth, honor Roger Lee as a TriMet rider in some public fashion. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Juan, and thank you, John. Thank you. Okay. Our next two for the morning testimony is Andy Nelson. Good morning, Andy. And Mark, and hopefully I say this correctly, Netch. Very good. Okay. Take your time.
Hello and good morning. My name is Andy Nelson. I wanted to be here today to introduce myself as the new CEO of Ride Connection. I've just begun this role, and I want to take the opportunity to just recognize and show my appreciation for our longstanding relationship between TriMet and Ride Connection that goes back more than 30 years. And in that time, we've teamed up to support transportation alternatives for our most vulnerable neighbors. And together, I think we've created a real essential piece of our social safety net. I wanted to say how much I look forward to continuing this partnership with you. For sure, our collaboration is needed more than ever, as you know, as our population ages, cost of living increases, and our most vulnerable neighbors risk becoming disconnected from the vital services such as health care and perhaps more importantly, their community. Ride Connection plays a really unique role in our regional transportation plan. We provide critical services that complement TriMet's, and we've developed a network of community providers whose reach and care ensure that our most vulnerable neighbors find that connection they need. I just wanted to say how committed I am to ensuring that Ride Connection remains a tried and true partner of TriMet and an organization that is well positioned to support the ambitious goals of Vision 2030. Thank you very much. I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Andy. Mark? No, staff will, there. Oh,
Good morning. My name is Mark Connect. The last time I was in here, I've talked to somebody, I don't remember the man's name, but you were going to try and do some things for better transportation for us veterans out to Rontalkin Field and out to the Hillsborough Air Show. And then another thing too I want to talk about. This winter, when it was terribly cold, I had a bus driver on lip, and I'm not going to be talked to this way. She said, because it was cold, she said, you should wear more clothes and this sort of thing, because they leave those doors, those lifts open when it is so cold. And, you know, some of us people, older people, you know, I've been told you have to leave those open till you fasten this in the bus. But, you know, when it is cold like that in the winter, you should make some kind of exceptions for that. And so that's about all I have to say. But outside of that I want to thank the board for your trying to do things for us veterans and trying to do transportation for us veterans. And so I keep busy with a lot. I'm the commander of our DAV chapter, and I'm the chaplain of the Fraternal Order of the Eagles, but I do a lot of advocacy work outside for veterans too. Thank you very much for your time today.
thank you, Mark. Thank you for your service, and thank you, Andy. Thank you. Okay, our next two members for testimony is Zachary Lawrenson and Dorothy Von Eggert.
I think he wants his own seat too, so you never know what he'll say.
Very good.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see everyone. My name is Zachary Lauritsen. I work at Oregon Walks. I'm also the manager of the 82nd Avenue Coalition. I wanted to talk to you about one of your topics today, which is 82nd Avenue Transit Line. You know, I want to share really three things on this little 3-minute journey, and I promise I'll get there done in three minutes. The first one is, I think you're all aware, but just want to be really clear. 82nd Avenue will be the recipient of about $1 billion of investment over the coming years. About $200 million from PBOT, about $300 million from, a little over $300 million from TriMet, and a little short of half a billion from the tax increment finance district that's coming. When you add that up, you know, about $1 billion is a lot of public money to put into a space and not expect there to be changes on the people who are living there, on the cost of their rent, on the, for businesses to lease their spaces. And so one of the things the coalition is advocating for is anti-displacement measures. And there's lots of bureaus and spaces and municipalities that have a role in this. And TriMet has one role, and one of those roles is around workforce development. And I'm here to say your team's been awesome to work with. They've been working hand in hand with us, but also with other partners that are going to do a lot of that hard work. And it's really important. So that's a celebration. The second thing is line 72 is the you probably know this too, highest ridership line in all of Oregon. And that is despite the fact that 82nd Avenue, while not as dangerous as Powell, is one of the most dangerous corridors in the entire metro area. It's one of the hottest places. It's one of the least connected by sidewalk infrastructure. And yet, in the face of all that, it is the highest ridership line in your entire system. And so when we think about the future of 82nd Avenue and this transit line, if there is not a better place to put transit lanes the length of an entire corridor, it is 82nd Avenue. There should be transit lanes the entire length, and give space and honor those riders that are going up and down 82nd Avenue. Now, I know that's not your choice. It's PBOT's choice, but you all have influence. And I hope that you will beat that drum that says there should be transit lanes all the way up and down 82nd Avenue, and we should be honoring and giving time and space savings to people who are transit riders. That's the second thing. The third thing is, I don't know if you've heard the news, but things are a little funky in Washington, D.C. And so we recognize this project is going to be successful, partly because there's money from the federal government. And it can be a little unnerving in your position to say, let's keep going when we don't have those dollars 100% secured. But I'm here to say that be brave. We need your resilience. We need you to buckle down and say, we are committed to this bus rapid transit project. We have wonderful partners. We have wonderful folks who are saying, we are going to do this together as a region. And so as things are funky over in Washington, D.C., let's be brave and let's move forward and make sure the 82nd Avenue Transit Project moves forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And thank you. Dorothy? There you go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Director Lewis, board directors, Manager DeSuze, and council. After I spoke at last month's board meeting, I ran into Director Kellogg on my lunch break. He advised me of a meeting that occurred afterwards to discuss line 96. Later that week, I received an email from Mr. Tom Mills stating that you would continue to monitor line 96, and that any currently planned / approved changes will be delayed until September. What I didn't hear is a commitment on how long you will continue to monitor. I am here today to advocate for a time frame. And here's why. Although the return to work order was effective for the federal government on March 10th, 2025, many of the 300 IRS telephone contact representatives who work in this area that line 96 serves, their return to office was delayed until this week, March 24th, Monday. And those numbers are just starting to show up. However, this week is not a true picture of how many people will be riding the bus due to the Portland metro area schools are on spring break. Many PSU and OHSU college students and faculty that I know ride the bus, because I speak with them, they aren't on it this week, and nor are the parents of secondary school children who work in Portland and ride 96. Therefore, I implore you to continue monitoring beyond the month of March. I respectfully request a minimum of 3 more months and longer if you're able. This will ensure we are capturing the full picture of ridership with an accurate reading. I mean, after all, you wouldn't want your doctor to diagnose you or recommend a treatment plan without having all the facts. Right now, the 7:06 and the 7:37 a.m. bus leaving Tualatin are averaging 20 people on each bus. I expect this will grow and the average will increase on the other AM buses. Thank you for hearing not just me, but all who are continuing to give feedback on this issue. I heard there was another advocate who took a picture of a completely full 7:37 a.m. bus and emailed it into TriMet. Please, my last request for today is to please ensure that your customer service representatives on the phones and through your email system are relaying all feedback to the appropriate personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dorothy. And thank you, Zachary, and Zachary's side person there, a little one. Thank you. Thank you to everyone today who has come forward to testify. The board and staff of TriMet appreciate your testimony. At this time, we will turn to our virtual testimony. Are you ready? Okay, we have one testimony, just the one, okay. The virtual testimony is William Mercer.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Can you hear me now?
Yes, my apologies.
Oh,
Please
no
go
problem at
ahead.
all. Sorry, I was unable
That's okay.
to join in person
That's okay.
today. I just wanted to understand a little bit more about how the resolutions were adopted, and a little bit more specifically with regards to our field of business. I'm the general manager for Centric Elevator Corporation. I got some very good feedback from Mr. Rogers via email, and I don't have any questions for the process at this time. I know I sent some information to the board, but we will hope to participate again in the future. I otherwise don't have any other comments, but I thank you for the time.
Thank you, William. Anything else? Okay. Oh, echo, goodness. At that time, thank you again to everyone who testified in person and virtual. If there's no other members coming from the public coming forward, seeing none at this time, I will close the public forum. We do have a little side deterrence there with window washing. He's right on cue. Public testimony finished. Okay, we will now proceed with board report section of our business meeting. I'm going to change a little bit, and I'm going to move to, Aaron's not here, Director Flowers. Would you like to present your report from the Metro Policy Advisory Committee?
Yes, would you mind giving me 2 seconds? I'll go right after another director. I just want to pull up an email. I've been out of town for the last couple weeks, so I actually missed our last meeting, but I have notes on it right here.
Okay. On that note, Director Frisbee, are you online?
I am. Good morning,
Hi,
everyone.
good morning. Can you provide us with your report from the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, also known as TEAC?
I'm happy to, and I will just say thank you all for your flexibility. I've got a sick kid at home, and so I'm sorry to not be there in person with you, but appreciate the ability to participate virtually. TEAC met 2 weeks ago on Wednesday. It was a big meeting. We got to talk about 82nd, and I'm thrilled to get to continue the conversation here today. We TriMet updated folks on the success of our Rosa Parks Day, which was really exciting. And in particular, I think last time we talked a little bit about the event we did at Rosa Parks School. And I just want to remind folks that was such a well done event. And I want to thank former Director Keith Edwards for all his work in getting that program started. We also talked about a lot of the community engagement events that have been happening over the past 3 months. And we talked, again, as I said, about the 82nd Avenue Citizen Advisory Committee. So in addition to the update on 82nd, of which we in general, I think folks were very excited that it was moving forward. We heard some great comments from Jan Carpenter, the head of our accessibility group, and feedback from other folks about how long this has been in the works, the commitment and organization of the community groups who have been involved, and they're really looking forward to the process moving forward. We also talked bigger picture about the role of transit agencies and TIAC in particular in the midst of this administration. We heard some oblique references from some of our public testimony, and that TriMet remains deeply committed to our diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, and deeply committed to serving our community and supporting our community during this time. We want to continue to be accessible and available to folks. I think all the board members here are really committed to answering questions or talking through challenges or issues and hearing feedback from community members. And we are navigating this moment. It's not straightforward. I will be honest, it is hard to figure out how and when to show up and how to make sure we're providing safe spaces for everyone and safe ways to get around our community, but we are doing our best. So thank you, John Gardner, for leading that conversation. So that is the update, and the next TIAC meeting is planned for June 10th. So we look forward to seeing folks then and there.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Turning to the board, any questions for Director Frisbee on TIAC? Excellent. And everyone notes the time of their next meeting for TIAC. At this time, ready? Okay.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
And thank you so much to staff for keeping me updated while I was out of town. I was in Japan for a couple weeks, and when I tell you I had a transit journey out there, my Lord, yeah, they do it right. It was a real inspiration. I mean, literally any direction you're going across the biggest city on the face of the earth, 37 million people in Tokyo. You know, there are trains coming every 2 to 3 minutes. You can take a Shinkansen, a bullet train from one end of the country to the next. The distance of Portland to Seattle traveled in 45 minutes for $6. It was just unbelievable to experience that directly. And, you know, I think just circling back to some of the comments made during public testimony, you know, the first gentleman who spoke, it was just incredibly safe and accessible. You had small children riding the system by themselves. I'm talking 4 or 5 years old, just running around with their backpacks, taking the subway system. So was quite inspired. With that, you know, thank you for everybody who testified. I know we as a board are really deeply committed to not only hearing you out, but translating everything that we hear into meaningful action. So we hear you loud and clear. With that, I'll share some of these updates that staff have provided from the last couple impact meetings, which got doubled up on us. So in this last meeting, Metro staff gave a comprehensive overview of the roles and responsibilities of Impact to orient new and returning members and provide an overview of the 2025 work program and topics anticipated for the year, which include Metro's Future Vision update, continued economic development and employment land discussions, and then the 3 major upcoming regional transportation plan projects. That's 82nd Avenue, TV Highway, and the Montgomery streetcar. They also presented on Metro's regional housing coordination strategy. Metro staff also shared an update on 82nd Avenue, the 82nd Avenue Transit Project, and the locally preferred alternative that will soon seek an impact recommendation from Metro Council endorsement. The LPA is a frequent express, or FX, bus rapid transit project with approximately 35 station locations operating between Clackamas Town Center and the Cully Boulevard and Killingsworth Street area. In March, Metro staff provided a legislative session update for land use, transportation, and infrastructure bills that are in discussion in this long session down in Salem. Staff also shared a regional supportive housing services update on reporting and reform. Since January, a number of developments have occurred, including a list of potential actions to reform the supportive housing services program to better streamline regional oversight and strategy. A decision as to whether or not to refer a measure to the November 2025 ballot. Hasn't been made yet, but we expect a decision in coming months. Lastly, Metro staff outlined the scope of work and engagement plan for the regional housing coordination strategy, which will result in a list of actions and a roadmap that Metro will undertake to promote the development of needed housing in the greater Portland area. Of course, this intersects with our work very directly in that we know that housing and transit go hand in hand, right? People need to live in places that allow them to get from point A to point B efficiently. And one of the most efficient ways for us to do that is through transit-oriented development. So deep nexus with our work here at TriMet. And Impact will next convene on the 23rd of April, which is the same day as our next board meeting. We don't have an agenda for that yet, but thank you once again for all the work that went into preparing this brief on the staff end. I'm grateful to you guys.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Flowers. Seeing the board, any questions? Just checking virtually. Okay, thank you. Next, we turn to Director Kim, who will share his report from the American Public Transportation Association, known as APTA. He attended the legal conference in Phoenix, Arizona.
Thank you. And in fact, would it be all right if I share my F&A report first? Yes, thank you, since I'm going right after that. In the Finance and Audit Committee meeting this morning, we had one agenda item today, which was to hear from our external auditors on the upcoming fiscal year end, June 30, 2025 audit. Aid Bailey, our auditors, presented the required communications and the audit approach for our fiscal year, ended June 30, 2025 external audit. They have identified capital assets, receivables, inventory, and revenues as areas of focus for this year's audit. Aid Bailey expects to complete the audit in October and come back to us in November with the results of the audit. And on the APTA conference, I got to attend APTA's legal conference a couple weeks ago, and the conference gave me opportunities to better understand the upcoming legal challenges and opportunities for TriMet. And the conference also gave me an opportunity to engage with leaders from other agencies that gave me a more robust perspective, as well as a greater appreciation for TriMet's own legal team. I'll share notes from a few of my favorite sessions. One was on navigating change in Washington as a regulatory and funding environment in which public transit agencies operate is changing in the context of President Trump's series of executive orders and presidential memos. We learned about how they directly impact public transportation. In Buy America compliance, we also learned about this is very in the weeds, but Buy America construction materials rules applicable to transit agencies. We went over some case studies, and my favorite one was on legal operations, challenges and strategies for modern legal departments. I learned about best practices, some of the main functional areas for legal operations and techniques that in-house legal departments are using to drive more efficiencies and bring meaningful change. I was reminded that legal ops is an essential function within legal departments and serves the entire agency as a whole of critical roles, including enhancing operational efficiency of the agency and managing costs of the agency, as well as supporting the broader agency strategies and objective. And I will also share one conversation I had during my lunch break, conversation from Denver's Regional Transportation District's top attorneys and their agency's most senior attorneys, been at the agency for just 5 years, with the rest of their legal team newer than that. As I heard about some pain points caused by lack of institutional knowledge, I had a newfound appreciation for TriMet's legal team led by General Counsel Shelley Devine, and of course, Director of Legal Services, Eric Van Hagen, who bring decades of in-house experience and expertise. So I personally wanted to thank them for their service and commitment to TriMet as well. So that wraps up my conference experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kim. Any questions for Director Kim? Seeing none? Okay. Okay, thank you to the board, and we're missing Erin. Well, we'll get hers later. Oh, okay. Did I miss that? Eileen? Oh, here we go. Let me back. Okay, we have Eileen Collins. I am sorry that I was moving right along. It was the window washer that threw me off, you know. When I got started, I was watching him. Thank you, and you're going to be sharing the Committee of Accessible Transportation report, also known as CAT.
Thank you, President Lewis. Good morning, Board. Good morning, Director DeSue, or General Manager DeSue. The March CAT meeting opened with the committee's approval of the slate of new committee members after a very rich recruitment process that resulted in 27 applicants. The slate of members will now proceed to the General Manager and Board President for approval. Director Graham provided an update on the work of the Board at the February meeting, specifically the work the Board is undertaking with the TriMet business plan to determine how TriMet measures ridership and environmental impacts, as well as safety and security initiatives. The TriMet proposed budget and uncertainty around future federal funding was discussed, and she also shared the inspirational work and partnership TriMet is engaging in with the Portland Opportunities Industrialization Center, POIC. TriMet Senior Community Engagement Coordinator from the Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Access Program provided a presentation to the committee on TriMet's growing employee resource groups, some of the best in the nation, in which over 800 TriMet employees currently participate with really impressive representation by our union staff. Dave Daly provided a fixed route subcommittee update from the CAT subcommittee on fixed route services, which included TriMet's safety response in emergent situations. The committee is particularly concerned with how riders with disabilities, those in mobility devices, would have been evacuated from a vehicle in an emergent situation, and we will continue to work with our public safety team to make sure that those members are represented in training activities. The Transit-Oriented Development Team provided an update on their future TOD plans, and the final presentation was an update on the bus shelter redesign project, which resulted in a field trip to the Jan Campbell Mobility Center to evaluate the placement of benches, Falcon devices, and e-papers in the new bus shelter family. We provided some mock-ups so the committee could sort of move devices through the space and make sure that there was enough room for mobility devices. Sky McLeod provided a wayfinding ad hoc committee update, including updates on the work we're doing with Portland State University around developing tactile maps, wayfinding technology, and the work that PSU students are doing to improve accessibility at the Beaverton Transit Center and Oregon City Transit Center with those current engineering and construction projects underway. TriMet staff provided updates on the 82nd Avenue Transit Project and CAT's involvement in the Community Advisory Committee, as well as inviting additional participation in Transit Day at the Capitol on April 1st. We'll be sending a lift bus with members of CAT so that they can talk to their legislators about the need for funding. We also celebrated and recapped Transit Driver Appreciation Day, which had a really robust participation with our Lyft partners. Staff also announced the date and location of the annual CAT Accessibility Luncheon on Wednesday, June 18th. We hope you'll all be able to join us. The committee received a final presentation on TriMet's proposed FY26 budget from Director of Grants, or Director of Budget and Forecasting, Michael Doan. A number of questions surfaced from the committee regarding future federal funding and STIF funding increases, and the committee underscored the need to continue funding lift vehicle replacements as the fleet is well beyond its useful life. The next meeting will be held on Wednesday, April 16th.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Hi.
Director Way.
Thank you. I just have one question. Thank you, Eileen, for the presentation. I was actually talking to a former CAT member the other day, and she's on a mobility device, and she was like, what happened to all the windows at the bus stops? And I was like, well, I think we're doing our replacement project, but I think her only thing was because it rained so much, right, in our region. I mean, the last couple of days we were very fortunate with sunny weather. She was just like, she was like, I get that if that's the replacement project's going on, but there's just no way for the wind and the water to kind of get on her mobility device, and she's kind of worried that she might get drenched as she's waiting for the bus to come. So is there any way that we can put some type of like plastic or film as like windows are getting replaced. She made a great point, and I said, I don't know, let me ask our team. So I was just wondering if you have any more details or information that you can share about, in the meantime, as the windows are getting replaced, what we can do to make sure our riders aren't being drenched or soaked in the rain.
Great point. Do I feel someone walking up behind me?
Okay,
with
thank
Jeremy
you.
Rayfelt?
And sorry to put you on the spot with this, but thank you.
Mr. Jeremy Rayfelt, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Hi, Jeremy Rayfelt, Director of Facilities Management. Yeah, if you can let me know where that's at, I can definitely get that taken care of right away. We are in the process of moving from glass in there to a polycarbonate that is virtually unbreakable. So that is why that particular stop probably does not have anything in it at the moment.
Thank you. I think she's in her Powell area. Let me confirm with her, but I think it was like a general comment of just like, how long will it take? And, you know, are riders expected to just sort of brave the elements for a couple of weeks or a couple of months? And so it's just a general comment, question.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we will get right on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Other questions? Okay. Director Frisbee, any questions? Nope.
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm so restrained.
Great, thank you. Hearing none, thank you. Okay, thank you. And that concludes our board reports. Thank you for your time and board meetings and board special committees. That takes time in being voices and hearing and bringing back information from those different committee meetings. We now turn to our general manager for his monthly report. General Manager DeSue.
Good morning, President Lewis and board members, community members that are here with us as well. TriMet staff, thank you. We have ATU leadership as well in the house with us, and I wanted to just say thank you for being here. And then all the public, thank you all for being here with us. In my report this morning, we're going to provide some really timely information to the board. We're going to talk about our monthly operations analysis, our safety and security reports. We're going to give an update to the board. We're going to talk about how we're going to transition out of the winter and into the spring. And there's several major projects that we're going to be taking on that state of good repair. The first being our East Side, Burnside, Max improvements projects that's there. We're going to also recap, as Eileen brought forward, one of our biggest celebrations of the year, and that's our Transit Driver Appreciation Day celebration. So let me just start off with our operations analysis very quickly. I need to bring Executive Director Dan Blair up with Transit System and Asset Support Division. He's joining us this month to present to us. As this new monthly report is evolving, we're now going to include the ridership update there. So Dan will be going forward, providing you with the number of riders that's riding our system in his analysis to eliminate the duplication that we're making. So Dan, I'm gonna start off with you.
Thank you, General Manager DeSue. Good morning, Board President Lewis, members of the board. I'm here to present the monthly operations analysis overview for January 2025. Next page is our ridership report. You'll see the figures that were highlighted in General Manager DeSue's talking points last month about how Max and Wes carried the majority of the ridership increases for January 2025 to January 2024. In addition to the significant increases for Max and Wes, ATP ridership increased almost 40% over January 2025 over January 2024. While these increases are striking, they are mainly due to the winter weather storm that occurred in mid-January of 2024. As you remember, due to track conditions, overhead line outages caused by fallen trees, we suspended Max service for 6 days. In January 2024, the storm also created an overall drop in service demand, further reducing ridership numbers during this time. In addition to the winter storm, there was also the Max service disruptions due to a better red construction that also affected ridership in 2024. Moving to bus KPI page. Boarding rides per revenue hour is slightly higher this year compared to 2024. On-time performance is starting 2025 well above target, which is really good to see. On the MAX page, I'd like to highlight mean distance between failure and preventive maintenance compliance. Both are above target and higher compared to January 2024. This is partly due to more Type 6 vehicles entering revenue service and the older Type 1s being retired. As we remove more Type 1s from service, MAX MDBF will continue to increase. Moving on to the ATP page, everything looks really good there. There's nothing actually to report out of the ordinary. If we move to WES, there's nothing to highlight there as well. WES performance looked great as usual. If we turn to the last page of the report, this is our one-stop shop for all key performance metrics. Each quadrant represents one of our modes and includes metrics for each of the last 12 months. So February 2024 through January 2025. This concludes my overview for today, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Can I go ahead and continue, and then at the end,
Sure.
We'll bring Dan back if we need to. Okay. Next this morning, I'd like to bring Andrew Wilson. He's our Executive Director of Safety and Security to come up with his monthly look at security-related statistics. But before you begin, I want to take a moment to share a comment with the board from a member of the public by the name of Joan, who attended a gathering in Happy Valley in your area, Director Wade, where TriMet Community Engagement and staff was doing outreach there. Joan wrote in after the meeting and said, quote, "I stopped using MAX because of safety concerns. And I used MAX yesterday, and it's a 180-degree difference. It is secured and clean," end quote, to Joan's statement. She also added that she was very impressed and pleased with the changes that were taking place. Again, I want to just say kudos to our outreach team, JC, you and your division that's reaching out, and also to you, Andrew, to you and your team on what you're doing. We've gained another rider in this situation here, and really thanks to you, what you're doing here under the safety and security aspect of efforts. So I'll yield to you to give your update.
Thanks, Sam. We're certainly making progress. A lot more work to do, but we're making progress. So appreciate we gained another rider. I do want to just briefly also talk a little bit about that Portland Mercury report for the SRT program. You probably saw some information that we provided to you as well regarding that report. We don't feel that's an accurate depiction at all of the SRT program. And so that was unfortunate. We've got 69 of those professionals out there right now on the system doing great work. That program was developed in partnership out of Reimagine Public Safety with Multnomah County Behavioral Health and many other stakeholders to develop a program that was good for Portland and for TriMet. And we've certainly heard that from our riders. We've certainly heard that from key stakeholders and partners as they see the work that's being done out there. So I just want to tell you that we continue to process improve with this team. We are not stopping on innovation. I actually met with the leadership of the security team as well as the owner of PPI last week and asked about how we are supporting the professionals out there doing this work. We are looking at some new innovative partnerships to provide additional support, but they do get quite a lot of support. It's unfortunate that the reporter in that case did not interview some of the folks that have had amazing experiences working with the SRT, some of whom testified here in front of you in the past regarding their experiences. Having said that, you know, the program is not for everyone, and we know that. And so we are continuing to provide some innovative solutions in terms of how do we support those folks when they do this really necessary, extremely difficult work out there. But the SRT is a key component of our teams out there, and I think they do very good work for us every day. And you'll hear about some of that work here in a second. So I just wanted to address that with you. So if we go to the first slide, Fare and code enforcement, we saw a bit of a dip this month. That is mostly related to some staffing unavailability, as well as some, it's a shorter month, and we had a new Ingenico device that's now out there. I did check with the team on Monday, and we've actually done more warnings and citations as of last Monday than we had for the prior month. So we're going to see this come back up as the week unfolds. But this is just one component that we've been focusing in on from a fare and code enforcement. If you actually look at the general manager's goals, it actually talks about fare checks. And so we're going to be talking a lot more about fare checks in the future, but I do want to just kind of give you some updates there in regard to fare and code enforcement. It is happening, and we're getting great feedback on that still. So it's really good to see out there for our community. Next slide, please. Again, that trend line has been very good for a while on reports of smoke and fumes for bus. And if we go to the next slide, for rail as well. As you heard from that rider, I think people are seeing differences out there in our system, and I think we're gaining back riders as a result. And so those are good wins. Next slide. The safety response team, providing the top 5 activities. I'm going to give you the total amount in the next slide, but you can kind of see the things that they're doing out there in the community, and this is just February. But very good work out there. When it talks about TriMet code, that's that last. Safety response team doesn't do any TriMet code work. What they do is inform about codes and provide education to folks. But we really want them out as a resource, not a code enforcer. On the next slide, you can look at the total activities. We actually have 69 professionals out there right now, which is about the highest we've ever had right now. So we expect March to actually have more activity. Excited to share that with you next month. And I think that concludes the report. Any questions? I'm up here. Yeah.
We'll continue on, and just be prepared at the end.
Yeah.
That if questions, we'll call you back up. So thanks, Andrew, for that. Next up, I want to just tell the board that it's springtime. Road construction is picking up right now, and for TriMet, that means that we're tackling some of our larger state of good repair projects. We're kicking off work this year with improvements to one of the oldest sections of our Max Blue Line. We're going to have a 2-week-long project on East Burnside Max Improvements Project. It's going to kick off on April 27th, and it'll go through May 10th. Our crews are going to be working out there both on the line and above the line. Tracks will be replaced. We're going to upgrade our equipment for extra reliability and a smoother ride. So our crews will be replacing as well a heavy use rail crossing located at 11 Mile Avenue, right outside of our Ruby Junction operating facility. They're also going to replace, and I want to say this, 8,000 feet of overhead catenary wire that provides the power for the trains. And as part of this work, they're going to also install a new wire tensioning system to help improve resiliency and really keep the trains running at their normal speeds when experiencing extreme heat. So if you know, when the trains operate with temperatures over 100 degrees, the lines sag. So they're putting those new tensioning systems on to help straighten it out. So this is extensive work. It's going to require a service disruption that's going to take place. We're going to have shuttle buses out there to help move riders around. Our communications teams will be out there sending out information in the coming weeks to let people know, and we're going to have people on the ground to be able to assist customers with the disruption and the movement for riders and employees. So that's coming. Want to transition over to a great day. It's our Transit Driver Appreciation Day, and I want to just express my appreciation to all of our TriMet operators, our lift operators, our West engineers who move riders every day, all of our contractors that provide service. And also appreciate everyone, as you can see on the pictures here, who really came out and celebrated our drivers for Transit Driver Appreciation. This year, we turned out to something that we call the Tunnel of Appreciation on the Transit Mall, and employees, along with a few riders, really lined the blocks up on the mall, starting at daylight, all the way until 5 p.m. that afternoon. And we just heard from occupants of various buildings along 6th and 5th Avenue who were listening to all of the cheers all day long. So you can imagine you're at work and you're hearing these cheers out there. And some people even came down and joined us out there with that. We had people playing different instruments and horns and everything else. So they love to hear and see the positivity, and their hearts were warm just as well as ours with the outpouring of support to our outstanding operators. I always call it our love that we show to our operators there. We had just about over 200 employees that showed up, organized in shifts. They lined the malls with signs and pom-poms. I even had a pom-pom out there cheering for our operators to be there. Just big smiles, big hearts that was there. And we had banners at various different locations that was there, so all of our riders could sign those banners, and the messages with those banners will be plastic and put up at all of our operating facilities so that our operators can see those banners. Another thing, our riders and members of the public, they posted messages of thanks on social media and also on our online kudo board for our operators to see. So very, very thankful and grateful for just all of our riders, all of our operators. And amongst the kudos quote, so grateful for everyone. Again, I can't thank you all enough and how you support our community. Thank you for supporting our operators. Our operators really felt the love that was there. The mood was electrifying along the Tunnel of Appreciation with the honks and waves and the big smiles. Even our drivers from the seat and from the bus seat and from the cab of the trains, they were waving and blowing their horns. Again, just want to send my gratitude to all 1,400 of our transit operators in-house, all of our contractors that provide service, just the support and gratitude from us to them and what they mean to our community, because we are the lifeblood of attaching our community and getting them where they need to be at. So to all of our bus operators, MAX operators, our contractors, West Lift, and then all of our PTSPs, our public transit providers, and all TriMet who participated, thank you all. And I want to include streetcar in there. I know I haven't shouted out there. We have our streetcar people from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for what you do. And I just wanted to say we truly appreciate them. The last three things I wanted to bring up is I wanted to talk about Powell for a moment. I know that there were people that came forward to testify, and I wanted to just say I really appreciate them coming forward to talk about that. As the board will remember, a resolution awarding a contract for this project was approved in December, and the project is in the pre-construction phase currently as we work with ODOT. That Powell is owned by ODOT. And then we got PBOT that's involved, and then you got TriMet that's involved. So we are on final design right now, change and permitting requirements currently. I do want to say, because I heard two people testify about the death of Roger Lee, it's absolutely heartbreaking to me as a leader of this organization, and it's heartbreaking to everybody at TriMet. My thoughts and prayers go out to his family and the loved ones, while the unmarked section of Southeast 67th Avenue where he was killed is not one of the crossings that will be improved as part of this project. There's going to be 5 other crossings that's going to receive upgrades. So we're going to have a conversation with ODOT and PBOT and see if we can do something at that location as well. The crossings will include Powell at Southeast 47th, 57th, 67th, and 79th Avenues, and Division at Roberts Avenue, where we're going to be doing our work. But the crosses will be improved. There will be lighting, signage, striping, ADA ramps, sidewalks, bus stop improvements, and an installation of a rapid flashing beacon at 2 of the intersections. So it's critical to us because we know people use this street. It's a heavily used street. Also, let me add 61st in there. That's a great point, Shelley. So 47th, 57th, 61st, 79th Division at Roberts Avenue, we're gonna enhance those locations there. Again, as I stated, as with so many heavy use streets in older areas of our region, we understand and we share residents' desire for a safer Powell Boulevard. So this project has brought on unique challenges to us and complexities with the coordination needed amongst the multiple jurisdictions that are out there and intersecting projects. So Powell is a state highway that's managed by ODOT. The intersection at 79th Avenue brought two separate projects together, a PBOT bikeway project and our crossing improvements. ODOT had concerns about the complex coordination that would be needed with our work and PBOTs, which led to the extended review process that took place there. A new design, a new intergovernmental agreement that took place, that TriMet will be responsible for both the crossings and the back upgrades. And the added challenges, again, of the additional work and the coordination was COVID-19 as we went through that period of time with the pandemic and also the permitting. You all know that permitting in our city is beginning to change, but we had problems back then due to staffing shortages. But while we've considered breaking the crossing improvements up and to try to begin construction sooner, that would have increased cost and it would have limited what improvements that could have been made. So construction on the improvements will begin in a few weeks, and we expect it to be completed by the summer. Along the way, I'll be giving you updates on that to let you know exactly what's taking place. Very quickly on the Line 96, I know that there were customers that came up and talked about it. I want to thank them for their comments around the Line 96. We are actively listening and also measuring. So I appreciate those comments that came forward. I do want to remind the board that we're not cutting anything. I want to state again, we're not cutting anything. We're reviewing, we're monitoring. The pieces that we have recommended is that we're adding stops to increase access to the line, which we think that may increase ridership. But again, we're still monitoring, as we stated, and I want to just say thank you. And then just before closing, I know Andy Nelson was out there. I want to say thank you to Andy. I look forward, I'm having my first meeting with him on Friday with Ride Connection, and we're going to continue to force our strong strategic partnership with each other as we move forward. And then last but not least, I want to say our POIC president and CEO is here, Joe McFerrin. Joe and I have had a very strong partnership since the day I started here at TriMet. You'll hear more from him and POIC here very shortly. And with that, President Lewis, that concludes my report.
Thank you, General Manager Dessou. Excellent. I think providing the board with updates on 82nd is vital, and I think hopefully we can continue that. Just a word on Appreciation Day. Hopefully it can go to Appreciation Week to extend, because we just can't cover all the gratitude and love that we can give to all of our operators and everyone in a day. I think it's deserving of a week. A lot of work and time, but it's love, and it is, the backbone, the glue that holds us in connection with our communities. And so Appreciation Week, hopefully.
I want to let you know, as a leader of this organization, TDAD is an everyday thing for me as a leader, and also for all 3,500 employees that work at TriMet.
Yeah.
So the love and the support is daily.
Yeah.
Because in order for us to come here and meet the mission that has been inspired upon us by the public, we need to show that appreciation, support, and love every single day.
Yes.
365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you. Agreed, and ditto, ditto. I'll take questions. Oh, welcome, Aaron's here, welcome. I'll take questions from the board, and I'll do mine last, and I'll start with Director Flowers.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And GM Dessous, thank you so much for that really comprehensive report and also for your really thorough responses to the concerns raised by the folks who came and testified today. One thing I think we might be able to do a better job of as a board, as somebody who has to do a lot of public testimony in my day job, I know that it can often be quite ungratifying work, right? You show up, you go out of your way to pull up on a body of people who are sitting in front of you on this big fancy dais. You work up the courage to share what you've been working on over the course of weeks or sometimes even months. And then oftentimes, all of that's met with is a thank you and next public comment. I think that it's fantastic to see how thorough you've responded to everything that was raised here by the multiple people who came up. I'd love if we could do that in real time while those folks are still standing before us or sitting in front of us, just so that they feel like there's a purpose to them showing up and testifying here, because we can say it all we want, but that is really the backbone of an efficient and constantly evolving transit system, right, is feedback from the people who ride the system daily. So I know we're grateful to them. I'm grateful to you and for all of your leadership. I'd love to see us close that gap on timing if possible.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Director Way.
Thank you, President Lewis, and thank you so much for the General Manager's report, Sam. I just wanted to just make a couple statements and maybe also just a question around the safety response team. Speaking of public comment, we heard a member of the community talk about some needed improvements to the particular program. Looking at Andrew, so sorry to kind of call you up a little bit, but I am really excited about this program. I still am, because the way that I see this program is that it was created for the community, by the community, right? And so if we just take a pause and say, how are we treating our staff who are on these front lines well, we can probably say, and I'm not reading the Portland article, Mercury article word for word, I just sort of glanced it over, but the theme that I'm hearing just from feedback from some of the folks who are doing this work on the ground is that they need to be listened to. They need to be heard. Things aren't going as well as they'd hoped for. And I hope that as leadership, that we can take a chance to continue to listen to them and not just, thank you, and we're going to move on and return to business as usual, because this is such an incredible program. It's changing lives of folks who have formerly been in the system, who formerly, been either incarcerated or on drugs, and we're giving folks the opportunity of second chances. And I really just want TriMet to take that into heart and consideration as we're trying to fine-tune this program, right? This is a brand new program that was implemented a couple of years ago, and it's not perfect, but I just want us to take a posture of we're here to listen, we're not, and to also be open and collaborative. There's so many different community partners and organizations that are interested in the safety and security of our community and of our public and all of the neighborhoods that TriMet goes through. And so I just want us to come with the approach of, we're open, we're here to collaborate, and also where can we improve, right? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing too from a little bit of the feedback of some of the reasons why there's a high turnover in this program. So I want this program to do well. I want it to succeed. You have 69 staff, which is amazing. Hopefully it can continue to grow. But I just wanted to make those comments because thank you for giving your presentation earlier. I know it was very brief, but what I didn't hear from you was just was areas that we can improve upon. And like I said, in addition to our bus operators, our drivers, again, the folks that are the front lines, particularly this new program that we're growing and cultivating and really making sure that they're part of TriMet's family, we need to continue to support them. So,
Andrew, let me jump in. Two things, Director Way, I wanted to say to you is that I had all my notes and I didn't bring it up. First, I'm gonna schedule a meeting for Andrew to meet with Daniel Lambert. I think Daniel came in and made a comment here. I think we want to hear his point, what he made about trauma-informed and EMT, behavioral health. We want to sit down and talk with him. To your point about learning, I would say also is that if I can talk with President Lewis, maybe at our strategy session that we have Andrew come back and talk about things that we could improve upon and take a look at. So if we could do that, that would be great. That way to give us an opportunity to talk with each other about this.
And thank you. This is incredibly hard work, and you've been with this program from the very beginning. So I also just really appreciate your leadership and your courage, Andrew, in taking this under your wings. So, but there's always room for improvement. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Before you leave, Andrew, I want to see if there's others for Andrew. Okay. Director Flowers.
No, I just wanted to agree with Director Way and also to really emphasize what I'm hearing from everybody here, which is that, constantly listening and improving doesn't take away from the fact that you're doing incredible work in real time. I want you to know that we recognize and see that as a board. It's been so clear in my short time on this board that you constantly go above and beyond, and so does the rest of your team. So we're grateful for all that you do, and we're eager to continue improving our system. It is hard. We're a transit agency, but we're so much more than that, right? We're also responsible not just for moving people around, but for ensuring that folks' livelihoods are sustained in a holistic way. That includes keeping people safe. I know that that's core to literally everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's important for us to remember that we're not always going to be perfect. There are going to be days where we don't get things all the way right. There are going to be days where, we have a negative pop in the press. There are also going to be days that balance those negative days out. And I think our gamble in believing not only in you, but in our staff and our operators and in the future of this agency and this system is one that firmly positions us really consistently in a position of faith in our constant ability to grow and get better. So thank you for the work that you do. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Director Flowers. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say thank you. Thank you to the TriMet board for giving us the ability to innovate and be in this space. I think it's an important space. And my promise to you is we will keep innovating to support our people. Absolutely. So I want you to hear that. And we met with leadership about some innovations, and I'll bring that back because we're already having some conversations about how we can really be more innovative than a lot of our peers in terms of supporting the people doing this work. To Director Way's point, and you know this, a lot of these people, this is life-changing work for them, and it's also very dangerous work for them because it exposes them to some things that are pretty rough in their past and connection points. And so we have supports, but we're going to continue to innovate on those. Absolutely.
Thank you. There's a few more questions.
Yeah.
Director Frisbee?
Thank you. And Andrew and the Director Way and Director Flowers, I just want to thank you both. Sorry, I'm showing up twice on the screen and it's really confusing. So apologies to anyone who has to put up with seeing my face twice. But Director Flowers, Director Way, and Andrew, thank you for your comments. And this program is constantly evolving. And that's part of what we're doing, and we appreciate everyone who's a part of that and part of making it work better for the folks who are writing the system and one of you writing the system. I also just had a couple of follow-up questions and comments to the general manager's report and to the public testimony we've heard, because I think we heard really powerful and committed folks today, and I want to highlight that. Dan, I really appreciated you going over the January numbers. I also, in going through the board packet, there are some numbers from February that felt a little more surprising and concerning. And I didn't know if we were going to get to talk about them now or if we're going to talk about them at the end of the meeting. So is there some direction on that?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand your specific question.
Was it for which director?
Yeah. For Dan, the
For Dan,
February
okay.
ridership numbers show a
Okay.
6% drop in ridership, which surprised me. And they show, in particular, a significantly steep drop in bus ridership, while we actually had an increase in rail ridership. And I see Bonnie coming up. So it's okay if we're going to get to that at another point, but I didn't know when we were going to get to check in on that.
So, hi, Bonnie Todd, Chief Operating Officer. This is a part of what General Manager Dessou was saying earlier about how he's not going to report on ridership anymore because we had overlapping reports. And I think, Director Frisbee, what you're looking at is something that is a finance report that they've gotten the ridership from February and used it in their numbers. And so we need to have a conversation with them so that confusion doesn't happen. But the overall monthly operations report, we can only do through January when we're reporting in March, because there's so much different data and some of it just isn't even available. Ridership is, but we still report it the January month. But again, the finance folks get the February numbers ahead of time, and they're running a little hot. So we're going to have a conversation about getting it all on the same page. But I think that's what you're seeing.
Okay, I won't jump too soon then, and I'll wait until next board meeting when we get to talk through those numbers. Thank you. Dan, I'll let you off the hot seat. I did just want to comment, and Sam, thank you for flagging a lot of the work that's happening on Powell. Powell has been a challenge from a transit perspective, from a safety perspective, for I think 35 years. It's actually maybe the one street, certainly in my district, where folks have been organizing longer maybe than they have on 82nd. I want to respond to what we heard. I absolutely believe jurisdictional transfer should happen. I also believe it should only happen when the city, and to what extent TriMet takes a role, are adequately compensated for the maintenance and the improvements that need to happen in order to bring that road up to basic standards. So that is a direct response to ODOT. And I think I look forward to seeing how we can work with ODOT and with our other partners to smooth some of those design challenges that Sam referenced that have absolutely slowed this project down. That street should be focused on safety. It should be focused on moving people by bus. Would love to explore more innovative ways to do that. And I appreciate the community's call in that space. So I want to highlight that. And then I did just also want to appreciate the 82nd Avenue Coalition folks coming to highlight the work that's happening on 82nd and the need to take a broad approach in addressing displacement as these improvements go forward. I know that's a value at TriMet. I also know there's already great work happening, and I in particular want to call out Apano, who is doing incredible work building housing along that corridor right now in advance of the transit improvements. And so, I think this is a place where we all need to come together and find ways to make, ensure that the project that goes forward benefits the folks who live there right now. So that is it. Oh, and also I will say, as someone who was frequently walking and taking the MAX and biking up and down the Tunnel of Love on Transit Operator Appreciation Day, it was thrilling. And it was really fun to see folks out there. I saw a couple TriMet folks that I knew. John Gardner, I saw you for sure out there at one point. I'm pretty sure I saw Adriana. So just wanted to highlight, there was tons of enthusiasm, and I hope that the I know the operators that I talked to felt totally loved and excited. And when I hopped on the FX2 to go home, the driver was sad to be leaving that corridor of enthusiasm. So yay, thank you for everyone for being out there and reminding our operators how much we appreciate them.
Awesome. Thank you, Director Frisbee. Excellent. Other comments? Okay, I have a, oh, where'd Andrew go? Oh, I have a few. Oh, of course, you know, safety and security, I always have comments. I usually save to the end. So my questions are for, you know, the safety response team. I was really instrumental in getting that going. With Rose Festival and all the summer activity coming up, are there going to be any special, I know we've heard from the directors on the continued training, pros and cons, but is there anything coming up that will prepare them for, especially the new? I know you've taken on a lot of new safety response teams. In fact, I have two folks who I know really close that are very excited and have a little anxiety about summertime and what that means for them. Do you have any ways to gauge or any plans for their safety and security, increasing training, less training?
Yeah, for the safety response team in
Yes.
relation to all these events that are coming up. And we do, I'm going to call Pat up here. Our Director of Security actually meets weekly with various groups, including POIC here in a minute too, that we'll talk about. And we are planning for that. We have a SETS committee here that's a transportation-led committee, special events committee that we coordinate with, and Pat and his team coordinate with in particular to make sure that our presence is felt when large events are happening. So I'm going to give that to Pat, and I think he has an answer.
Thanks, Andrew, and good morning, everybody. What I would say is every week in the security meeting, we identify hotspots and where do we need to focus for the next week, month, and how do we tackle this as a force multiplier with all of our teams. And so we're going to start preparing for Rose Festival and all of the events. One of the things I'd like to really share with the group that is important to all of our teams, and I say this, I'm going to say it next week, I say it to all the new hire orientations and all the supervisor meetings. Our staff have hundreds of contacts every day that they may never remember, but that might be a contact that somebody never forgets. And so they're reminded of that, and they're reminded that they don't always see the progress and success that they have on somebody's lives. And so they're reminded to talk about this and to celebrate it, but also to understand how we can get better at this. As a transit agency, we measure our success oftentimes by on-time performance. But with mental health and substance abuse, and we all have somebody that is a family member or a close friend that we know that has suffered, those are measured often in months and years, not minutes and seconds. And so it's hard to measure these, and so we're looking for any innovative way we can do to measure our success with the staff. I hope that makes sense.
And I'll just add, it's a great question because it's one of the key focuses of all of TriMet right now is how do we get folks back coming downtown for the events, coming downtown to watch a movie, all the things. I was talking about this with Joe McFerrin earlier about just the way Portland used to be, that you could put your kids on a train and send them into town and have that conversation about safety, but not in a way of the way we have to have it now as a parent. And so when I think about events, this is a real great way to showcase what we've built. And so we're trying to be out there more present, and not just with security, but with the safety response team, showing our riders the ways we're approaching the community and how we're building the community alongside them, if that makes sense. So we certainly are focused on events and building those teams and connecting in all of our teams with that effort.
Thank you. I think training is just really a pivotal for their lives and how they de-escalate issues. And there's no substitute for scenario training because you just can't prepare for some of the things that the SRTs will see. There's no way. I mean, long history in law enforcement, you can't prepare for everything. And it impacts their lives, not alone, let alone the person who's having the issue or those who are watching the issue. I think it's okay for the board to hear the weeds of good and the bad so that we celebrate both parts. But It'd be good to hear more when we have our strategic planning piece on how that team is doing. It is new. I mean, what, 2 years? It's still very, very new, and there's a lot of bumps, growth, innovation, but training is important to prepare them for what we have in society today and what we don't have in society. Cameras can't be everywhere, and so I'd like to highlight that. My other question that I have, and then I think we'll take a 10-minute break before we go into our major agenda, is you talked a little bit, General Manager, about repairs and upgrades to disrupting our system. What impact is that going to have on our summer? I mean, I see just massive amounts of activity returning to downtown. So is it going to be, and you didn't give a time, maybe you did, but a time frame. Is it going to be spring changes so that summer's not disrupted, or long-term? And hopefully there's a really robust communication to the communities of those disruptions. I hear, especially myself from my area, on disruptions, mainly because we have max, but how will what's plans for the community in, Facebook, whatever they listen to get that information out?
So first of all, we continuously provide maintenance to our system. This 2-week-long piece that I was talking about starts April 27th, and it goes through May 10th. And going back to the point that I had made about our communication team, they're going to be sending out information in the coming weeks. We're going to have customer service out there, transportation, ride guides, security, all of the staff assisting the disruption that's taken place. So it's a 2-week disruption that is going to take place there. But there will be other work that goes on also during the summer months as well. We try to minimize the disruption to customers because we want the system to run. But our issue is that since we're replacing 8,000 feet of overhead cable, we need to do that now, because when the temperatures get up to 100 degrees, that sags, and you don't want to break, because then that's when it's shut down for longer periods. So we want to do that maintenance now and get it taken care of.
Thank you. Any other comments, thoughts, questions from board members? Director Frisbee, you're good? Yep.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, General Manager finished? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and we will return. Everyone, hello? Okay, everyone, 1 minute, let's get started. Okay, at this time, we'll go ahead and get started. Now let us turn to the consent agenda. This morning, the consent agenda consists of approving the minutes of our last meeting of February 26, 2025.
Hit the gavel.
Okay. Approving the minutes of our last meeting of February 26, 2025, and the resolution number 250308 authorizing the modification of a contract with JN Maintenance for landscape and bio-whale maintenance and on-call services. Does any director wish to have any item removed from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none. Is there a motion to approve the 2 items contained on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no or nay? Hearing none, motion carries. Okay, at this time, we'll move to our first resolution. Question.
POIC.
No.
Oh, POIC is not, it should be POIC.
Yeah, I know.
That's the first resolution.
Okay, it's resolution 2, yeah, because it was changed. Okay. We will now consider resolution 250309, authorizing a contract modification with the Portland Opportunities Industrialization Center, also known as POIC, doing business as Rosemary Anderson High School, to provide community safety work program services. Mr. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis. POIC is an organization that's been providing workforce training, career placement for people and communities of color in the Portland region for more than 55 years. During the February meeting, the board received a presentation by POIC, and they touched on their Community Safety Worker, or CSW, program. The CSW program works like an apprenticeship. It allows POIC community outreach workers to attend classes at PSU while performing meaningful outreach in a community that draws on lived experience. Last year, TriMet executed a contract with POIC for community safety workers to provide outreach on our system to youth considered at risk for negative influences. The contract, which grew out of a previous agreement that POIC had with the city of Portland, expires next month. That brings me to the modification before you. TriMet and POIC would like to extend the contract for 2 additional terms. They would allow TriMet to bring up to 4 community safety workers and a program supervisor to complement our ongoing emphasis on a multifaceted safety and security approach. POIC's focus will include transit lines near high schools with a history of community violence in line with POIC's mission. Executive Director of Safety and Security, Andrew Wilson, is here to provide a few program accomplishments thus far, and we'd like to take this in the future. Also with Andrew is the President CEO of POIC, Joe McFerrin.
Thank you all. I've had, I love me some POIC. These guys have been here now twice, and we've kept them here late. So appreciate you, Joe, and others kind of hanging out with us today. And but just really want to celebrate this partnership. This is as much for TriMet or more for TriMet to sink in with a stable community builder that's been around for a long time doing good work, that have recognized some of the issues that are out there now in our community. And so we've really been excited about growing this partnership. And so that's what we're talking about here today. Over this last year, I wanted to bring up a couple program accomplishments that we've been able to partner with. So if we go to the next slide, please, some key emphasis for this particular contract for our security department is increased focus on youth violence prevention, street-level outreach in gang-effective areas, and community safety worker attendance at youth-related games and events with high ridership. That's kind of where we've been. We're going to talk about it a little bit more where we're going to head now. But this is really vital work that needs to be done on our system. And post-COVID, this is just a real opportunity for us to get back in this space and to work with a real trusted partner. Now, we're getting 4 community safety workers with a lead supervisor position as a part of this contract. They have many more folks doing this work, so this is just us being a part of some of that work and sinking in together. So if we go to the next slide. So future partnerships, kind of is how we're going to grow this, is increased coordination and training with TriMet public safety teams. That weekly security meeting has already started to be attended by the POIC folks so that they can sink in and they can work together on the system. Also, one of the key offerings, the trauma and violence impacted family support. This is a really incredible thing that POIC engages in, which is really helping community deal with issues following an event. And so we want to partner in that because there are issues that happen on transit. There are people that are affected. And I've learned a lot talking with POIC about how affected they are from someone getting injured, assaulted, or dying, and the family and the resources needed to really support them through that process. And so that's one element. And then lastly, just increased coordination with POIC's mission to connect youth, adults, and families in underserved communities with employment opportunities, which was the key emphasis of POIC. So we're really excited about growing that partnership as well and seeing ways where we can connect to good paying jobs here. So it's great to have this partnership. I just wanted to kind of level set that before you review this. I think that's all for us, but Joe is here if you want to ask Joe a question. I told him he didn't have to prepare nothing, but if you want to ask him a question. And he's got Roy and Heike here too, so.
President, can I finish? A couple of things I want to say.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I do want to say that POIC is a nonprofit organization, and it was selected through a sole source procurement process. POIC's workforce includes 194 employees, 72% are minorities, and 44% are female or women. Extending this contract through 2 more years will bring a total value of $1.95 million. The contract funds for the first year of the modification are included in the proposed FY 2026 budget for Safety and Security Division. And your approval is recommended.
Before we take questions, comments, accolades from the board, I do need to call, is there a motion to approve Resolution 250309?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to make comments, questions, and sharing at this time before we vote? Director Flowers.
Yeah, let me just say, on a personal level, I've known Joe McFerrin since I was in 3rd grade. He was my first basketball coach at the Salvation Army on Williams and Killingsworth. And it's just been really transformative for me as an adult to learn more about the work that you've committed your entire life to. It's not only defined the way that you've moved through these professional spaces in our city, but it's defined the way that you engage in your private life as well. You've touched the lives of so many young people in our communities, so many adults as well. I happen to be one of them who's eternally indebted to your service and your brilliance. I don't think there's an organization better suited to carry out this work than POIC. I feel tremendously privileged and fortunate to have the opportunity to be able to vote yes on this today. But more broadly, I'm really, really excited about some of the things that you talked about, Andrew, about future opportunities for partnership. I think one of the things that POIC gets most right in their work is this understanding that a safety net alone is not enough, right? It takes opportunity for our communities to really not only be stable, but to be safe. And I can't wait to see ways that we get creative on thinking about opportunity as a direct extension of community safety work moving forward. So thank you for your presence. Thank you, fellas, for being here and joining us. And thank you for bringing this to the board today.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Director Frisbee?
Thank you. And I think we all expressed our deep appreciation and enthusiasm for the work that you're doing last meeting. I just had a quick question. Andrew, I think you're probably the person to answer this, which is the $1.95 million contract is more than 2 times the scope. So we're extending it for 2 years. So I would expect a 2x increase. I'm assuming that just is because it's a broader scope, which I absolutely support, but I wanted to double check.
Yeah, well, we actually had a contract which was $650,000 that we've been working with. We're extending it for 2 additional years, which is why it gets now to 1.95. And I'll just say that we had a relationship with POIC before, going back many years, but it was through a contract with the city of Portland. And so it was a much smaller scope. And so we were really excited to start this partnership last year. They've been able to hire folks to be able to do this work, get in it. And this is us just extending for 2 more years, if that makes sense.
So to clarify,
that makes sense. Can I just confirm then that, so what you're saying is the $650,000 contract we have right now is included in the 1.95?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. Director Flowers, did you?
Oh, no, I was just going to clarify the exact same thing that Tyler just did.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions from the board? Okay. And then I have a question, and I did make a note on it. How will TriMet and POIC coordinate efforts with our law enforcement? I mean, I know they're doing safety and security, but they're an intricate part. So have there been trainings? I mean, how will we integrate that? And then also the school districts. I mean, those are 2 components that are part.
Yeah, and that's why I was introducing the security team meetings. We have a weekly meeting which Pat coordinates. Now, at that meeting is transit police, district attorneys, security, heads of SRT, others, so we can all kind of jointly look at ways in which we can help the community. And POIC is now a part of that with these
Good.
community safety workers. And so it syncs us in with that collaborative effort. Now, there are other things that we're going to kind of restart and I think add emphasis to this next few years related to games and events as we kind of, again, come out of post-COVID. This is work that used to be done where you've got, credible community stakeholders. I think that's the word, credible, right? I'm working for you now. No, but I say this because I love this group, and I say that because credible messengers, I think, in those locations can really help affect the community safety of a post-game kind of rush on the buses. Those are things that we have been received requests for to go out and put security and post at events as we load up buses after events, those types of things. That's not the right credible messenger. We want POIC out there in those environments to really understand the youth dynamic, understand who's there. And so that's some of the real, I think, necessary work that they're going to provide, and amongst some other things. So,
Mr. McPherson, you have our attention.
So thank you. I'm honored to be here. First, I want to say that, we take this partnership very seriously. We can't meet our mission with the folks that we love to serve without the community being safe. And so that's why over the years we've evolved and really leaned in and wanted to lead this work. And we've been working with TriMet for some years, sometimes unofficially, sometimes officially. And I'm proud to say that we've always been supportive, mutually supportive in the work to keep our community safe. I'm so glad I was invited to this meeting because I had an idea, but I didn't really. This meeting has given me a different perspective on the work that you all do. I know that, the 72 came up. And I was thinking, man, back in the day, the 72 messed around and got me married to my wife because I used to sneak out and catch the 72 over there off of Lombard over to her house when I was in high school and all that stuff. And now we've been married for 33 years and 3 kids and 4 grandkids. But anyway, and I remember writing that, how I was sitting here listening to y'all, and I was like, man, TriMet was so important and vital to my development. Not only my development, but of so many other people. And sometimes you don't think about it. And so, again, I'm just reminded in terms of how important this work is. And so I just, on behalf of our organization, our partners, and the folks that we serve, I just want to say how much I appreciate it. And we are going to do everything in our power to make sure that this is a huge success. And thank you for investing in this innovation. It was talked about earlier about training. And so now we look at these credible messengers. We've been doing this work for a long time, and we said, we're missing something here. So now we have a 2-year professional development track that we put our credible messengers on, and you guys are investing in it, and we appreciate that. I believe this will be a national model in the future. I want to take just a minute to thank GM Dessou in terms of, I remember when you reached out in 2019 when you were the COO at that time, and you talked about your passion and what you wanted to do. And we've been, like you mentioned, we've been in contact ever since. And Andrew, his team, and of course, John Gardner. I mean, John is outstanding. But I'll just say this and then I'll move on. The question about law enforcement, we started our educational component in the mid-'80s, and we were a Crip school. Because of our neighborhood, we got right in the middle of the gang activity and stood a school up for folks that looked like me and others that were bringing harm, impacted by harm. And so working with law enforcement is critical to our work. Now, we don't go out and talk about it all the time, but we have a really good working relationship with law enforcement. When you talk about schools, we provide education, alternative education for 6 school districts. And so there's some connectivity here and some synergy here. And last thing I'll say is these 2 leaders here, Haig and Roy, are outstanding, and they will ensure that our partnership works smoothly. They'll be responsive 24 hours a day, and we'll make sure that we do everything in our power to help work with you to keep our community safe. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, and we highly appreciate you being here today to share those words. We missed you at our last meeting, so I had Sam said, oh, invite, and let's put it back for the vote. So we're glad to hear your words, and thank you. Highly appreciative of the partnership, and we're honored to work with you. I think I said that last time. So let's show.
Thank you, Chair Lewis.
You're welcome. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Hearing none, motion passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. The board now will convene for the TriMet Budget Committee. Okay, to consider Resolution 250310, approving the proposed, keyword, proposed fiscal year 2026 annual budget for submission to the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. In our role as the TriMet Budget Committee, I will now ask if any member of the public here has any comments for the proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. Okay. Thank you. There's no public comment. General Manager, do you have any comments on the resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. It's budget season, so I can't say it no clearer than that. Oregon budget law requires all local governments to follow a specific process to adopt budgets. Acting in your role as the TriMet Budget Committee, your adoption of this resolution will fulfill an important step in this process. After the committee approves the proposed FY26 budget, it will be published as the approved version. The approved version will be submitted to the TSCC for its review and consideration and public hearing next month. As a reminder, the TSCC is the Multnomah County Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. That body will take up the budget and hold a public hearing on April 23rd. Assuming the TSCC approves the approved budget, our Finance Division will make final adjustments and come before the board for the final consideration and formal adoption at the May 26 board meeting. A final budget must be adopted before the start of the new fiscal year on July 1st. The proposed FY 2026 budget sets a total funding amount of $1.94 billion. I have Chief Financial Officer Nancy Young Oliver and Director of Budget and Forecasting Michael Doan here for a closer look at the numbers and what's ahead.
Great, thank you, General Manager Dessou. President Lewis and members of the board, thanks for listening to the proposed budget. Advance, please. We anticipate ending fiscal year 2025 with a fund balance of $796.4 million, which of course becomes our beginning fund balance for the year. This is a combination of both restricted and unrestricted funds. We have forecasted to receive just a little over $1.1 billion in various resources and anticipate spending $1.2 billion in offering services through TriMet. That would give us an ending fund balance of $722 million, and that is both a combination of restricted and unrestricted. What that means is that our fund balance is going to decrease by $74.4 million. We've had the opportunity to do some board education sessions. We have a few more to go. In there, we do talk about that decrease to our fund balance. Just as a reminder, when COVID hit, we purposed to increase our fund balance, knowing that if our passenger revenues did not come back and our other resources did not continue to increase, that we could potentially have a deficit. And that's what you're seeing here, is that because we were good stewards for a number of years, we're now able to draw on those reserves in order to balance the budget. I'm going to ask Michael now to go through a little bit high-level summary of the changes in those revenues and expenditures.
Thanks, Nancy. Again, Michael Doan, Director of Budget and Forecasting. I'll dive into a little bit more on the details. Keep in mind, we're just summarizing a couple slides here, right, of 420 pages of different numbers in the budget document. These are just to represent kind of the bigger changes that we're seeing in those numbers overall. On the resource side or the revenue side, on operating revenues, we have about 5.8 million in increased passenger revenues. That's stemming from both ridership gains and some increases in service, as well as some further fare enforcement in boosting up those numbers just a little bit. As far as the tax revenue pieces go, it's about a $29.8 million increase in the proposed budget. This is due to both a growth in the jobs in the region and the number of wages. That's still outpacing some of the layoffs that you're hearing about too. The growth in those areas are still increasing. The federal operating grants, a lot of this is just due to the timing of the various grants that come in. So not only the timing of it, but we also use similar expenditures as eligible drawdowns as our STIF program, the statewide transportation investment funds. They have some overlap on eligible expenses. So part of this timing is we're going to see an increase on the line below in the state funding, and it causes a little bit of a decrease on that federal operating grant line, but more or less just timing with those numbers. The statewide funding, or the state funding there for the transportation investment funds, the growth here is similar to both the jobs and wages growth that you're seeing in the tax revenue on the tax side of it. The other part of the increases there on the resources has to do with the STIF being a biennium. You're allowed to carry over funds from one year or one biennium to the next. And we're seeing that here with that $14.6 million figure there. The last on here is bond proceeds pending board authorization to go out for bonds. But in the proposed budget, we have us going out for about $150 million in those bonds. The final amount will be determined later. Again, still pending board authorization. Next slide, please. On the expenditure side, our largest expenses for the agency is in personal services, just like many other agencies. This, in particular, the increase that you're seeing in here is due to FTE increases in training, specifically. All those new operators, all those new mechanics that we're hiring, we're adding additional FTE. We also have wage increases in here, about 3% for both union and non-union. And there's some increase in the medical and dental costs that we have. So overall, that's accumulating to that 43.1 million. On the materials and services piece of it, there's a number of line items. If we try to look at it at the end of the day and chalk it all up to just a simple thing, the contract increases that we have in accessible transportation for providing that service is what's driving those expenses mostly. Again, if you look at it line by line, there's a lot of things that are moving around, but those are the largest areas. On the other post-employment benefits, this is another timing type of thing. The FY 2025 budget includes us trying to establish a trust and having some budget available there. The FY 2026 proposed budget has that trust established and just a more regular contribution that will be ongoing in that area. The capital improvement program, you're going to find this fluctuates year to year regardless based on the cash flow of different projects. So we do have an internal policy that this won't exceed 250 million. And we're within that with our proposed budget for 2026. That policy is in place to try to make sure that we're putting the projects forward that will be done, that will be completed, and really utilizes that budget that we're putting forth. On the debt service piece, this is kind of a direct tieback to the new planned bond issuance. Again, pending board authorization. Should we go forward with that, we'll have additional debt payments that we'll have to make. So there's an increase of 8.9 million in that area. And this last one is contingency. Our policy is 3% of our operating requirements. We then look at things that we don't know what the outcome will be in the year and if we should add a little bit more to it for that. So in this case, per direction from the CFO, we added approximately 50 million to the contingency amount for some of that federal uncertainty that's going on right now. So this is influx in there. Should the federal funding not come forward, this is an area that we can look at of trying to account for that and adjust for some of those things. So with that, anything else you'd like to add, Nancy?
Yes, I'll just add as a reminder that the proposed budget before you, there's a couple of things. First of all, I may have mentioned before, it's a little bit thicker than what it has been in the past. The team is working very diligently to bring the budget into a format and platform that would be ADA compliant. So it just means that we have to have a few more line items in there. There's still a lot of work left to do in order to meet that standard, but that's the change in the thickness. And then second, I'll share back to what General Manager Jesus stated, that between the proposed, which becomes the approved, and then we get to the adopted in May, we will bring you a full reconciliation of all changes made between the proposed approved to the adopted. And then we have just a few dates to cover with you, Michael?
Yeah. So we've already done the public rollout. You've probably seen the budget documents come out either online or shipped to your residents earlier this month. Should you approve the budget today, we pass this along to the TSCC for their review and comments on our budget too, and they'll hold a public hearing as well on April 23rd. We then plan to hopefully adopt that budget on May 28th, given your discretion on those. And at the very least, we need to have an adopted budget before July 1st of 2025 to have spending authority for the next fiscal year. Thank you.
Okay, before I take questions, comments, let me call for, is there a motion to approve Resolution 250310?
So moved, Kim.
Second.
Thank you, and there is a second. It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment or ask questions before we vote? Director Way and then Director Flowers.
Thank you so much for the presentation and some of the slides outlining what is ahead of us. I just have a quick question because I know that under the bond proceeds, it's still pending our discussion and authorization, but do you have a sense of the timeline for when we do need to make a final decision as a board for that?
Thank you for that question, Director Way. Once you approve a resolution, we have to wait at least 60 days before we can go to market. Internally, we would not plan to go to market before October. And so in a discussion with President Lewis earlier today, we indicated that we might come back in July when we have other decisions have been made and they're known so that we can give you an updated forecast on our revenue projections. So we would anticipate July, the 60-day waiting period, and then going out to market no earlier than October.
Thank you, Director Way. Director Flowers?
Yeah, thank you, Nancy, Michael. Really appreciate all the time you put into this. Just a couple quick questions on this end. First, I'm just hoping you guys can help me better understand that 77 million in contingency funding. How does that operate? What conditions need to be met or need to be true in order for us to activate that funding? I'm really asking this question in the spirit of the federal uncertainty that we're trying to deal with the understanding that, federal revenue seems to account for roughly 20% of our operating budget this year. And this figure seems to be roughly half of that. So how could we, provided, a doomsday scenario where that funding is yanked back or rescinded, take advantage of some of that funding? And then my second question is, how much of this, let me get the number, $146.3 million in federal operating funding is already obligated?
So obligated or executed? Meaning available to us?
Meaning available
Yeah.
to us, yes.
Actually, I just received a text from one of my staff that we have received a notice that that the federal government has executed some funding towards us. And so that number is going to change, in a sense, every day. The additional funding that I placed into contingency, it's really a fail-safe. So that if there was delay in federal funding, but we still need to pay the bills, I don't want to have to go out for short-term funding, but I would prefer to utilize the funds that we have in our reserve. There's always a cost to borrowing. So if we don't have to borrow, just due to timing differences or possible delays. But our experience so far has been that slowly, the grants that we have submitted and we're waiting to be executed by the FTA, they're slowly being executed. And so we're feeling pretty good and pretty hopeful. I just want that fail-safe for us, just in case.
No, it makes perfect sense.
If I may add, Nancy, in order to use contingency, it has to come to the board for a budget transfer. So you guys would be involved in any use of that should we need to. Yeah.
Okay. Copy.
We would also say that we plan and forecast to actually never use contingency. So I think the last time we came back and pulled, I can't even remember when it was. It was a number of years ago when we've pulled from contingency.
Yeah, and it's fantastic to hear that, a portion of these obligated funds have been executed to date. I'm wondering, is there any specific tranche of that broader $146.3 million that feels particularly vulnerable under this administration, or that you folks are actively concerned about more so than other parts of that bucket?
Yeah, that's a great question. We get two flavors of federal funding. One is our federal formula funding. We receive the federal formula funding because we have boardings and we have passenger miles and we have operating expenses. And they put all of those numbers into a formula and it kicks out a number and we get that on a regular basis. We don't have to compete for it. Yep. We get it automatically based on our delivery of service. Yep. The other flavor that we get is competitive. Yep. So we apply to receive those funds and we compete against other properties. Sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. When we look at those two flavors, the federal formula funding we feel is more secure because those are funds that every transportation service provider has relied on and is relying on to continue their service on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to the competitive grants, that's where we feel that there is more risk because they could choose to either not award something that they have traditionally awarded to us in the past, or they could just choose not to execute those dollars. In the worst-case scenario, should federal funding on the discretionary level be halted, stopped, delayed, it would affect our capital projects because that's the mainstream. So we've got 82nd Street, TV Highway. Those are big capital projects, coming towards us. So that's where we would see the risk.
And are those funds reimbursement-based, or do we get that money up front?
So it's a cost reimbursement basis. In other words, you have to demonstrate an eligible expenditure, and then you can draw those funds down.
Copy. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Director Flowers. Director Frisbee, any questions?
Just a few quick comments. Thank you for putting this together, Nancy and Michael and team. And I will say, I appreciated the efforts towards ADA compliancy because I didn't have to zoom it up to like 150% when I was reading on my computer. So it benefits all of us. Thank you. I just wanted to follow up a little bit on Director Flowers' comment, which is to say I want to applaud the approach in keeping additional funding in contingency, not that I anticipate, let me say, I am optimistic that we will not have funds withheld by this administration. But I do expect that there will be delays. And so I think keeping some ability to float as we wait for those delays is prudent. And I continue to be optimistic. I'm sure that we wouldn't see something like formula funds withheld, which would be breaking the law. So let's cross our fingers for that one. My high level sort of 500,000 foot comment, which I know sometimes drives Nancy crazy, is I was looking at this budget and comparing it to last year's and remembering our TSCC budget hearing and thinking about how much of the budget and the business plan last year were focused around preparing for our 2030 vision and the work that we need to do to accomplish that. And my hope at that time that this budget and this year's business plan would double down on that work. And obviously things have changed as we've changed the timeline and the approach on Vision 2030, but I am hopeful as the team identifies the new path forward for 2030 that we see that work reflected more strongly in the budget documents that come to us and the business plan. And I know that means there's like some retroactive work but I think your budget should reflect your priorities. Our priorities right now are increasing ridership and making transit a safe, convenient, affordable, accessible option for as many people as possible in our district. So that's my sort of high level comment on this, which does not in any way reflect the great work that your team has done in putting this together.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. And just a comment on that. So we, in just this week, received the numbers needed for the new service that will be put out in this next fiscal year. So you will see those changes reflected in the adopted budget. It just took a little bit more thought and time to put together this year. We wanted to make sure that we were making good decisions that still keep us fiscally sustainable. And so that will be an add between this proposed budget and the adopted budget that you'll hear in May.
President Lewis, just jumping in to Director Frisbee's question. Alan will address at his briefing today with the business plan. He'll address some of the points that you have.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. Nancy, I do have one or two questions. So we, in the our adopted budget, you did talk a little bit, I think it's mentioned about the bond. So do you anticipate any questions, comment, feedback from TSCC regarding that? I mean, they're going to see that and ask questions. So can you share a little bit about what we can expect?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. So the TSCC will be joining us in April, as you know, for the public hearing. And Finance has already met with the TSCC staff.
Okay, good, okay.
And we do actually a very thorough walkthrough of the budget with them. We talk about, service and staffing and, bonding and what's happening with our revenues, federal and state, local. So they've already had a pretty in-depth walkthrough. And then a week before the hearing, we will actually receive the official questions. And those questions are up to the commissioners who measure us against Oregon budget law and just kind of what piques their interest. So we'll know that in a week in advance, but no earlier.
Okay, that's a short window, but
it is.
Okay.
It is, but we.
But
can
I
work
know
with
you're
it.
prepared
We
for
are.
the budget, for the bond question. My other question was, you had mentioned earlier you anticipate some changes between our budget and the final. Can you give the top two what you anticipate? I mean, I know we'll hear, but can we know ahead of time the top two?
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost has to be service.
Right.
So the changes that we'll be making in service that will go in fiscal year 2026, and that's not my story to tell, but I've got the numbers, and so you're going to see some changes in the number of operators and the corresponding mechanics
so
that go along with it. I would say that is the number one. Two, there'll be some other staffing changes that you'll see going.
Increases or decreases?
There'll be a few increases.
Okay.
Okay, so whenever, you increase service, there's other things that get triggered too. So for example, like, after you increase the number of operators by a certain number, we need to add a payroll person, right? And that's just an example, that's not in
Okay,
this budget.
sure.
But you have to look at the picture as a whole. So the number one thing really is service. Okay, how are we changing that service? So there is going to be an increase there, and then the corresponding operators that go with it, and then there's some other staffing throughout the agency that will be added as well, looking at our initiatives and how we're moving forward.
Okay, so just expect changes in payroll between what we vote today and then our final, and some other things. Okay.
I would also like to mention that the Oregon budget law puts a boundary around that. You cannot change your budget by more than 10%.
Ah,
If-
okay.
If you do
Okay, good
change
to
it
know.
by more than 10%, we have to start all over.
Okay.
With a new proposed budget
So
and then
there's some-
approved a new public hearing. So we watch that pretty carefully. Our biggest lift is presenting to you the proposed budget. There is always changes between the proposed and the adopted. We have retirements, we have new hires, we have, some folks who have just moved on. We make changes to service. And then, of course, we update all of our revenue projections. And when we put in front of you the proposed budget, it's based on actuals through about December. And when we come to you in May, the actuals will be through the end of March. So we have updated information on both the revenue side and the expenditure side.
One other point I would add is we also reevaluate the projects and updated cash flows. So projects that might take a little bit longer from fiscal year 2025 to finish up are carried over into 26. And then some other just movement with those that may occur from new information that we have. That's another primary movement that you'll see sometimes in the adopted.
Oh, okay, thank you. It's good to know that there is that 10%. There won't be any
Boundary, yeah.
head shaking. Whoa, what happened here? Good, okay, thank you. At this time, I'll call, oh, sorry, yes, Director Flowers. Oh, Director Aaron.
Thank you. I just had a question about the interaction of the budget process and the state economic and revenue reforecasting process. So the state will do that reforecast once in March and again in June. Does that impact this process at all?
So TriMet's financial forecast is influenced by the state forecast, as well as, and I think I mentioned this when we met last, but we work directly with Eco Northwest here in the area. We gather all that information, and then we make adjustments for what we know. We're so much more intimately involved, of course, with all of the numbers and all of the history within TriMet itself. So we are influenced directly by it, and we take into consideration, again, the state, as well as Eco Northwest, and then all of our actuals to date, and anything else that becomes known to us.
Thank you. Director Flowers?
Sorry, I'll be quick. You mentioned projected increases, albeit they potentially small, that we can expect to see the next time you come and report back on these numbers. You expected to see those increases in service and staffing. I imagine those would be coupled with decreases in other areas. Do you have any ideas of what those areas might be that you're planning to draw down? If I'm jumping the gun here, you can just give me a head nod, and that's okay. I'm happy to wait. It's completely fine.
I would ask, we're still working it out, and I need to talk to staff and agency, because there's going to be some reduction, just to let you know.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands up, okay. I'll call for the vote. All in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none and seeing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Board Administrator, I was accidentally muted, but I was an aye. Apologies.
Thank you. I kind of paused there. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just slow on the click.
Okay, thank you. Okay, having completed our work for the budget resolution, I now adjourn the TriMet Budget Committee, and we will reconvene as the TriMet Board of Directors. The next resolution before the board is resolution number 250311, declaring official intent to reimburse prior expenditures from the proceeds of senior lien payroll tax revenue bonds. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis, members of the board. Oregon statute allows TriMet to issue and sell revenue bonds for a public purpose. At a future board meeting, the board will consider the issuance of up to $150 million in senior lien payroll tax revenue bonds. The Internal Revenue Code requires TriMet to declare our official intent to use future bond proceeds to reimburse project costs paid prior to a bond sale. Once approved, the resolution before you satisfies that requirement. Pursuant to this resolution, the board declares its official intent for TriMet to use future bond proceeds to pay for costs including or incurred on the following projects: light rail vehicle replacement, alternative fuel infrastructure, Tualatin Valley Highway transit improvements, 82nd Avenue transit improvements, bus purchases, and the Columbia Operations Facility project. This resolution does not bind TriMet to make any expenditures, incur any indebtedness, or proceed with any project. It provides TriMet the option to use future bond proceeds to reimburse costs incurred prior to a bond sale. However, absent the approval of this resolution, project costs incurred prior to the bond sale will need to be financed by other means. Therefore, your approval of this resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250311?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Director Frisbee?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Okay. The next resolution before the board is resolution number 250312, authorizing a contract with Coney Incorporated for elevator and lift maintenance and repair services. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, TriMet currently contracts with Coney to, is it Coney? Coney. I need to make sure I'm pronouncing it, because someone corrected me earlier on it. So TriMet currently contracts with Coney to perform preventative testing, maintenance and repair services on 33 elevators and lifts in our transit system. The contract expires in just a few days on March 31st. A request for proposal was issued for this solicitation. 2 vendors submitted proposal, but only Coney was deemed to be in the competitive range and shortlisted for consideration. Coney's best and final offer of $2.55 million for a 5-year term of the contract was determined by the Source Evaluation Committee to be fair and reasonable. TriMet as an entity is not staffed, licensed, and or equipped to perform these services and requires the expertise of a contract such as Coney. If approved, this contract will allow for an indefinite number of task orders with actual cost base on TriMet's requirements for service over the contract term. The initial year of the contract amount is accounted for in the maintenance division's budget and FY 2025 and in the proposed budget for FY '26. Looking at workforce, Coney has 95 employees, 8.4% are female, 2.1% are minorities. Coney intends to self-perform all of the services, and your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Thank you, General Manager. Is there a motion to approve Resolution Number 250312?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It has been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Okay. Director Flowers?
Just a quick question, probably for the procurement team. You know, I see in the description of the process here that they got a 34.5 out of 40 on the understanding of the work criteria. I'm wondering what goes into that criteria and what a typical range is for folks we deem competitive.
So I'm going to ask Jeremy Rayfelt and also Jeff, if you could come up as well.
Sorry, Director Flowers, could you please repeat that question?
Yeah, sure thing. So I guess it's more general than focused on this specific contract and procurement process. But I'm wondering in general what this understanding of the work criteria tends to include and represent, and what a typical score range is for bids that we consider highly competitive.
So that would be understanding the type of equipment that we have, our maintenance practices, the expectation of being able to be on call 24 hours a day. And I'll let Jeff actually, what the typical range is.
We obviously score proposals in all kinds of range. We tend to look at them, 90% is kind of in an A, 80 to 90 is kind of a B, 70 to 80 is kind of a C, and below 70% is what we consider to be technically unacceptable. So we see scores in there, so out of 40 points, we would expect a score, 34 is not a great score, but it's also not a poor score either. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, that's helpful.
Any other questions? Okay, I do have one. Since it's task-based, how do you prevent overruns? I mean, they're going to come in and it's based on task, not just contract. How do you, just monitor this particular contract or any? Kind of a general question.
So my PM that is in charge of this contract, he actually works with a third-party vendor that monitors Kone and does audits on their work, anything that they do. They audit their billing, their how often they're out. So that's how we monitor that.
So just so I'm clear, we don't ourselves, we contract that out to another third party to do audits and checks?
We do it as well. My PM of that contract does, and then they work with our third party to ensure that Kone is within their contract.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Director Frisbee?
No questions.
Okay, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay. We now consider Resolution 250313, authorizing a contract modification with Northwest Infrastructure, LLC, for construction, management, and general contractor services for the Columbia Operations Facility Site preparation and the main distribution frame construction project. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, at the October 23rd, 2024 board meeting, the board passed resolution number 24-10-61, which authorized pre-construction services and an early work package with possible change orders for this project. That approved contract with Northwest Infrastructure for pre-construction and early work was for an amount not to exceed $969,100. As mentioned in the October, TriMet is now returning for further authorization for the total contract price. The resolution before you this morning would authorize a modification of the CMGC services contract to increase the amount by nearly $5.2 million to incorporate the remaining site preparation and the main distribution frame scope of work at the Columbia site, and provide additional funding for unanticipated issues. Due to the uncertainties related to this property, including limited available records about the buildings on the property that must be demolished, as well as plans to rebuild on a former industrial site, the resolution includes change order authority of approximately $1.75 million. This would bring the total cost of construction, including potential change orders, to an amount not to exceed about $7.96 million. The amount is included in our Engineering and Construction Division FY 2025 and proposed FY 2026 budgets. Northwest Infrastructure was selected through a competitive request for proposal. It is a certified disadvantaged business and minority business enterprise with 13-person workforce, 77% whom are minorities and 10% are women, and I recommend your approval.
Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250313?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
It has been moved and second. I call for any comments. Director Flowers?
I'm sorry for all the questions today, y'all. I'm just wondering, this change order allowance seems pretty hefty. And I understand, based off of your explanation, why that is. I'm wondering if there was a consideration of potentially a lower initial threshold with the potential for board approval of further increases to change order allowance, or if this was the landing place that staff felt was most appropriate.
Agreed. So let me call Sean Batty, if you would come up, just as well as our Senior Project Manager, Adam Sutherland, and answer the question directly about the increase.
Absolutely. I appreciate the question. Thank you so much. I'm Sean Batty. I'm the Interim Executive Director of Engineering and Construction. I'm also the Director of the Design and Construction Department. That's the department that's delivering this particular project. Adam will introduce himself if he needs to speak. It's a great question. We're going out into active construction. And so what we want to do is we want to arm our project managers with an adequate change order allowance, really not contingency, but change order allowance to address things that they may see. This particular project has a scope that's very, very subject to unforeseen site conditions, things that are outside the owner's control. We're talking about demolition of buildings, and while we've done assessments, you're always encountering different things in the field. The reason why I'm comfortable with this amount, even though you're right, it is high, is this is not the only control we have on actually using that change order allowance. This is authority that the project manager has to use within our established process to address changes where the contractor has clear entitlement and where we've agreed to evaluation. So it's not the same as saying we're spending that money. You're just recognizing as a board that for this particular project, we need a little bit more room for our project manager to be successful and be fair and reasonable with our contractor as we encounter things in the field that are a little bit more unknown because of the scope.
Yeah, sure. I guess my only follow-up would be, in an event where that change order allowance were lower, what would the process be for further reconsideration? Is that something that would just have to be brought back to the board to be increased via resolution?
Yeah, if we, in your scenario where we had a lower change order allowance and we encountered a differing site condition where the contractor was entitled, the issue for the project manager is we would have to come to the board, which only meets monthly, in order to resolve that. So we're essentially dragging you through a bunch of known change management process with adequate controls, and also potentially adding the cost of delay risk in order to gain your approval.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Director Flowers, any other? Yes, Director Way.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Oh, Director Frisbee, I guess.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Director Way. Director Frisbee?
Thank you, Director Way. I have a little bit of a follow-up question to Director Flowers, I think, which is just big picture. I was also surprised, I think, to see a $969,000 contract come with an extension to about $5.2 million. And I understand the interest in sticking with the same contractor who has familiarity and understanding the project. And I understand the need for a large contingency at this stage, although 33% is quite large. But I guess from a philosophical perspective, when do we decide to go back out for another bid? Like at what stage in a project versus extending a contract that already exists? Because a 5X increase and a huge change in scope for a contract to me seems like a moment when we would at least consider whether or not it makes sense to go out for another bid.
Could I just intercept that for a second, Director Frisbee? I think you might be completely on the same page as we are, but there might be a little bit of differing understanding of where we are with this contract based on the words you're using. So you'll see in the resolution that we've selected this contractor already through a CMGC contracting method. And we brought to the board the cost for them to do pre-construction and some early work, which they've performed. And so what we're doing right now is not extending a contract and not adding work per se in the way you're using that. What we're doing is we've now negotiated, based on that pre-construction work, a total contract price inclusive of all of the work. And we're simply moving forward with this contractor, which we've already selected through a competitive process, to perform that balance of work. And I don't know that that makes a difference to your question, but I just wanted to mention it before we spend more time discussing.
It does. Thank you. That clarification is helpful.
Okay, thank you, Director Frisbee. Any other questions, comments? Okay, let's move forward with our vote. All in favors? Oh, did he? Oh, okay. Oh, Adam, would you like to? Oh, okay, but doesn't work? That means you're good. Okay. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, there we go. Okay, any opposed? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you very much for coming forward. And Adam, next time you talk. Okay. The next resolution before the board is Resolution 240314, authorizing a contract with Mass Electric Construction Company for the construction manager general contractor services for the Type 1 traction power substation replacement project. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
President Lewis, members of the board, TriMet operates 11 Type 1 traction power substations along what we refer to as the Banfield alignment on the original MAX line that's known as our MAX Blue line. They were installed back in 1983. The substations are more than 40 years old and nearing the end of their expected service lives. Last March, the board adopted Resolution 24-03-21, establishing a single prime design contract for the substation replacement project. If approved, this resolution would apply to the first design group, which includes 6 substations with similar site conditions between Northeast 60th Avenue Station and the Gresham Central Mag Station. The work involves complexities that will require the contractor to manage multiple construction phases at different locations along that alignment. The company must minimize negative impacts on our riders and neighboring communities, as well as a minimized planned disruption, which are impactful to our operations. Last September, the board exempted this contract from competitive bidding requirements. That exemption allowed TriMet to use an RFP to engage a CMGC for this project. The RFP resulted in 3 proposals, which were evaluated and scored by a source evaluation committee, which selected Mass Electric Construction. The resolution before you today authorizes initial pre-construction services for about $170,000. We will return to the board at a later date for subsequent work, including the total contract price. Mass Electric has 1,100 employees, and nearly a third are minorities, and about 9% are women. TriMet will work with Mass Electric to maximize subcontracting opportunities for certified small businesses. Funding for the pre-construction work is included in the proposed FY26 budget for the Engineering and Construction Division, and I recommend your approval.
Okay, thank you, General Manager. At this time, we'll call for the motion to approve Resolution 25-0314. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and second. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Director Flowers?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think this gets at Director Frisbee's question in the consideration of the last resolution. This is just a process we're at the front end of rather than the back end, but similar situation, right? We have a pre-construction service package that we're voting to move forward with. But there's no indication of what we estimate the larger contract to be priced at. I know we don't know, and I know that a significant portion of this work is tailored around giving us a better sense of what that price point will be. I'm wondering if we have even rough estimates of what we expect this contract to look like, even if the range is really broad.
Let me call the project manager up. So Kim Neal and Sean, if you guys come up. I guess Kim's not coming. Okay.
Good morning, Board, and thank you for the questions. So the estimated construction cost at this point in this number will change. So this is why it's not included in the resolution, but we estimate a value of $25 million for all 6 sites for the replacement.
Yeah, that's great. And I think just for our visibility, even if it's not baked into the resolutions themselves, it'd be nice to have a sense of that moving forward when we're considering pre-construction service packages like this one, just so that we are able to accurately put these resolutions for early work in the broader context of the total cost that our team's estimating. Yeah.
Thank you. We can ask the general manager when he gives us his overview to include that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Noted.
Okay. Thank you, Director Flowers. Any other comments, questions from the board? Director Frisbee, any?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, is there a motion to approve? We did. Thank you, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. All opposed? No? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing your feedback. Okay, the board now considers, lost my track again, long meetings. Resolution 250315, recommending for the Metro Council the adoption of the locally preferred alternative for 82nd Avenue Transit Project as part of the Regional Transportation Plan. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President
Okay.
Lewis. Members of the board, it is necessary for Metro to garner endorsements of the locally preferred alternative, or LPA, for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project by local jurisdictions, including TriMet, to demonstrate to the Federal Transit Administration that there is local consensus and support for the project. That public demonstration and local support is essential to advance the development and pursue federal funding for this project. So the 82nd Avenue Transit Project will greatly improve transportation along the 82nd Avenue corridor between Clackamas Town Center and the Cully neighborhood in Northeast Portland. The project will bring a faster, higher capacity transit options to what is currently TriMet's busiest line, the Line 72. And it serves 82nd Avenue, a legacy highway with high congestion. The Line 72 is currently also our most delayed bus line. But the 82nd Avenue Transit Project will make way for our second TriMet FX, Frequent Express line, and include innovative solutions to help our buses get around traffic and really to keep riders moving. So this project, in coordination with other infrastructure improvements also being delivered by our partners, will make 82nd Avenue a safer and more accessible corridor for the community and those who use it. So in July 2024, the project received approval from the FTA to enter the project development phase. Adopting a LPA would allow Metro to amend the regional transportation plan to include the LPA. So Metro, TriMet, and other regional partners have been collaborating for the past 2 years to develop the LPA, and the project steering committee voted unanimously to approve it. So now I want to bring in our project director, Michael Kaiser. He's going to give the board a very closer look. So Michael, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. President Lewis, members of the board, General Manager DeSue, Michael Kaiser, Project Director in Engineering and Construction at TriMet. Thank you for the opportunity to bring this forward today. This is a milestone moment in the project. And first of all, I just want to give a little bit of background, a little context before we move into the LPA. Some of our partners with the city, April Bertison and Metro, Melissa Ashbaugh, are with us today, should questions come up. You also heard from our Oregon Walks partner, Zachary Lawrenson, earlier in favor of this action. Before you is the timeline that we are on with this project. We've gone through 2.5 years of planning to get to this point. It's an important corridor, and sometimes it takes that long. We are in 30% design currently, and we'll wrap that design process up at the end of, or at the beginning of 27, and then move into construction with opening or revenue service starting in June of 2029. The LPA voted in January, was voted on in January 2025 by our steering committee partners. We move through the endorsement process, and we'll get final endorsement from Metro City Council in June of this year. So line 72 today, it's just worth noting, although we've mentioned this many times and many of you are familiar, it is our highest ridership bus line on the system. It connects over 20 other bus lines, our Max Blue Line, Green Line, Red Lines, and key destinations along A7, or A2nd Avenue. Since the pandemic, ridership on this route has rebounded more quickly than other routes. Despite the fact that it has the highest passenger delay, it's one of our most congested corridors in the region. It has existing bus stops that are spaced very close together and don't even meet current TriMet standards. Most bus stops lack shelter, seating, crosswalks, lighting, and real-time information. The image you see at the bottom of this line is really somewhat typical of the condition that we see out there today. If we were to look at 82nd today as an indicator of regional health, you would see the urgency for action. You would see that this corridor can no longer be ignored. While these projects sometimes are considered transit expansion projects, it may be more accurate to think of them as a renovation and revitalization of our existing system. The congestion, the decline in safety, and the diminished performance of our system will only continue to get worse without transformational change. Here you see a corridor map of the 82nd Avenue line. It is a crucial arterial that crosses jurisdictions of Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and City of Portland. The project itself would upgrade service largely on the 82nd Avenue portion, with line 72 continuing as frequent service as it does today along Killingsworth and with a terminus at Park Rose Transit Center. We have embarked on extensive community engagement and will continue to do that through the course of the project for the next several years of design. What we hear over and over is the community wants investment. They want more reliable, faster service. They want easier connections. They want bus lanes to create reliability in the system, safe, comfortable access in the pedestrian environment, increased mobility on the bus, opportunity for neighborhood improvements, and all-around safety on the line itself. Next one. Some points to kind of highlight here is the engagement that was led by TriMet's Community Affairs team at the Coley Terminus. As we were looking at what our northern terminus was, it was extremely important that we hear from the community to ensure that it is something that they want, that it's not something that's forced upon them. With our agency partners, we went out, and a lot of the outreach or feedback that we heard was extensively positive. We worked with neighborhood and community associations, but also established a Coley Terminus evaluation group made up of members from NIA, Habitat for Humanity, McDaniel High School, Hacienda CDC, Coley Association Neighbors, Sabin, CDC, and Living Coley and Verde, as well as other open houses at Las Adelitas. Overall, positive feedback. People are excited about having the terminus in the Coley neighborhood, what it means for access, what it means for reinforcing that community up there, and creating opportunities around safety and overall well-being and opportunity. There are concerns around parking removal, and that's something we're looking to mitigate in the design. Coley is a key component, as you've heard in earlier testimonies, questions around displacement. Coley is a key component of anti-displacement, with Hacienda CDC commitment to expanding affordable housing for the residents that live there today. And that's really important to emphasize. They are committed to expanding this in a higher density mixed-use environment that creates a lively hub and a land use transportation connection, which we always try to pursue for these types of projects. Projects investments, we've spoke to these before, but they include 68 station platforms with shelters, real-time information, lighting, and seating, enhanced crossings at every station location, sidewalk, curb ramp, and accessibility improvements, new signals for our next-gen TSP. This is a big part of how we move efficiently along this congested corridor, roadway improvements, largely focused at the stations with concrete bus pads, dedicated lanes for transit are currently under evaluation with our partners, and of course, a 60-foot articulated fleet with, our intention to go hydrogen on this as well. On the technical side, each of these investments contribute to optimizing our transit system, increasing travel times and growing ridership well into the future. On the social and economic side, our long game involves catalyzing this corridor, growing strength in our communities, providing greater access to jobs, reducing damaging greenhouse emissions, and growing stronger economic resiliency in our region. This balance of investment ensures that benefits will continue to grow well after this project is complete. As a city builder, TriMet knows that when more individuals are thriving in our communities, our service to those communities thrives as well. And I think that's extremely important to think about the value of our work in the community. And I will say, we are not doing this alone. Partnership is the secret ingredient to bringing about this level of transformational change. Great things are rarely achieved when we stand alone. I think we all know that. Our agency partners, direct federal partners, and community advocates all have similar values and a drive to leverage infrastructure improvements to maximize the return on our investment. PBOT's Building a Better 82nd Avenue plan outlines a vision for the future of 82nd and will serve as a guiding strategy for the development of transportation infrastructure. As part of their separate project, they are looking and are actively under construction, upgrading signals for TSP in partnership, ADA ramps, improving ADA ramps along the entire corridor, creating medians for access management, and to increase tree canopy along this corridor. They're also investing in extensive paving, which pays back to TriMet too in terms of maintenance of our vehicles, increased lighting, and street trees and sidewalk infill where there are none today. Together with PBOT, Metro, the community, and our design partners, we are also exploring unprecedented potential for business access and transit lanes along key segments of the corridor. Conversations and analysis continues, and will ultimately support key decision-making in the next few months. This effort has already opened the door to better understand some of the key factors related to long-term transit reliability. Now, for the LPA request for endorsement that we have before you today. Metro Council has established, just for a bit of context, a steering committee for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project via resolution in June of 2022. It's comprised of 8 agencies and 4 community-based reps to ensure that the project meaningfully incorporates feedback from the agencies and community directly affected by the project. Those partners are listed here on the slide. The community was charged with selecting a locally preferred alternative, or LPA. The LPA is how we demonstrate regional consensus on a project at a high level. More specifically, the LPA for a transit project defines the mode, general station locations, and route. Here we have the basics of the locally preferred alternative that was voted on by the steering committee in January of 25. The mode is frequent express, FX, BRT, are second, as Sam had mentioned. General station locations are roughly 1/3 of a mile in their spacing. Alignment is roughly 10 miles between Clackamas Town Center on the south end and to Coley Boulevard and Killingsworth on the north end. We refer to that as the Coley Triangle. With this, we also present a draft funding plan to demonstrate how do we get to achieving our goals. Secured project development funds, that area in kind of the taupe there at the top, amounting to just over $30 million, establish the foundation of commitment that was used to leverage more funding for the project. This included TriMet committing an additional $45 million for construction, an awarded FTA Lono grant for $39 million, of which 24 goes directly to the project, an additional $16 million from PBOT, regional flexible funds proposed at around $30 million, the Federal Capital Investment Grant, or CIG grant, which is currently in process for $150 million, and a City of Portland PSEF grant award in the amount of $55.5 million, with $48 to $50 million going directly to the project. In turn, these investments have leveraged over $4 million in workforce development that will be carried out in parallel with this project, and another $12 million for hydrogen vehicle infrastructure or PAL operating facility. With the TriMet board support today, we will continue on with the endorsements from ODOT, Clackamas County, Multnomah County, and Portland, culminating with Metro Council endorsement in June. I thank you so much for your time today and your anticipated endorsement of this LPA for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project.
And President Lewis, your approval of the resolution is recommended.
Okay. Thank you, General Manager, and thank you for the presentation. Is there a motion to approve Resolution 250315?
So moved. Okay.
Yep. I'll second. There's a crowd, and we have a second. It's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Director Way?
Thank you so much, Michael, for the presentation and just the overview. Completely agree with you. This is such a major milestone in this project. And, I'll say it again, but having grown up right over on 79th and Division and still having just deep roots in that community, I am just so impressed by TriMet's work of collaboration with PBOT, April's back there, and so many others, the state and Metro as well, of course, and our county partners, in really bringing us to this next critical step of the project. So we hope that we can send a clear message to the FTA that there is this support and this collaboration. And I just wanted to echo a little bit of what Director Frisbee was saying earlier with, I'm also optimistic with the federal funds, and of course, not guaranteed, but hopefully this sends a strong signal to the FTA that there's just so much support and careful planning and collaboration that's happening in one of our highest used transit lines in the entire state. So hopefully that that message goes along. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Way. Echo those words. Director Flowers?
Yeah, just a quick question out of curiosity. You talked about a potential terminus at that Cully Triangle area. I live really, really close to there. I'm wondering, have you folks done any of the work of identifying potential sites for where that terminus might take place? Are you imagining like an actual center there? Or was I misunderstanding the way you were talking?
So terminus arrangements take all shapes and forms depending on the context we're within. At Cully, it is in the middle of a thriving community. We want to minimize impacts, but we want to create a place. And as I mentioned, Hacienda CDC is a major landowner in that area that is developing even more affordable housing. They have the Triangle site, or a portion of that is available. We've already been in conversations with them for an off-site terminus or layover area. Because of where we are in the project currently, we don't have certainty on acquisition of that property, but we have positive signs that it has potential. As a backup, we also have an on-street facility that would also minimize displacement of parking and work for the community. So the community has looked at both of those options, and we received their kind of blessing of both so that we have flexibility on which way we go. Either way, I think touching down in the Cully Triangle is going to bring a benefit, is going to bring safety, and really eyes on the street and energy to that core.
Absolutely. It's going to be a game changer. And thank you so much for your presentation. Super excited to be able to support this today.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Flowers. Director Frisbee?
Thank you, President Lewis. And Michael, thank you so much for that presentation. I can hear my kids starting to wake up, so I'm going to try to be really fast, which in no way should that brevity suggest that, as everyone here knows, I'm so thrilled about this project.
We know we have a sore.
I know. Michael, I do actually, I don't even know if you realized or if you meant to emphasize this, but you said at one point, TriMet as a city builder, and your ownership of that role and stepping into that space, that is something that it just brought me total joy. I wrote down like 7 exclamation points. And it's something that I would love to hear echoed with every project manager and everyone who works at TriMet, is understanding we are a city builder, we are a community builder. It is what we do. And so I just wanted to make sure to call that out and say thank you for so clearly owning that and articulating that. Big picture, this is our second FX line. The first time you do something, it's innovative and groundbreaking. The second time you do it, it's a habit. And so this project is so important because I think in a way that is different than division, it says, this is what TriMet does when we do our big FX projects. And to that end, I hope that we will be as ambitious as possible. You mentioned the fact that the 72 line has some of the most significant delay. I hope at the end of this project that we are rewarding people and paying people back for the delay that they have experienced for decades with a bus that moves them quickly where they want to go. We have heard, it's so funny today, the number of times the 72 has come up in people's nostalgia and feelings towards TriMet, and it just makes me thrilled to think about what we can deliver moving forward. So this is a huge new project. I am really hopeful too, as we work towards ensuring that the folks who live there now can experience this, that also pushes us and the city to be innovative and think broader about how, can we provide, what can we do to help lessen the cost and the associated permitting requirements around building taller? How can we help make sure that we are maximizing this investment in every single way? I look forward to maybe hearing some updates from our TOD team about how they're thinking about this, and certainly from the team at the city. I also just want to briefly, and as always, thank PSEF for their contribution to this work. I think it is, I hope that it is groundbreaking and becomes a habit, because I think when you look at the intention of PSEF to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to support low income and BIPOC households, investing in significant transit projects is absolutely one of the best ways that we can do that. So I hope this is something we see again and again, and really look forward to working and partnering with them in this space. On those lines, I know the Portland City Council is looking at a proposal to fill in a lot of needed sidewalk issues in East County or in East Portland. That is critical, but those sidewalk fill-ins matter not only, but they are most important in terms of helping people access transit so that they can take longer trips safely. And so we don't end up with the situation we ended up with on Powell with Roger Lee. So I hope that this project is an example of us thinking bigger, thinking truly about how we help people get where they need to go, and delivering back to the community the things and needs that they have been asking for. Here's to TriMet as a city builder and a community builder. And thank you, Michael and team, for all your work.
Thank you, Director Frisbee. If I may, just really briefly, while this is our second FX project, we do not look at it as a rinse and repeat. We are looking at how do we build off of the successes of our previous one? How do we look at continuous improvement, and how can we leverage even more opportunities? We're excited. We have an amazing team, amazing partners. We hope to bring on an amazing contractor very soon to help us really think bigger and have a greater impact in what we do. So thank you for your support.
Well, and I hope we see you in front of us for the next FX project in a year. No pressure.
Me too.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, Director Frisbee. I'm trying not to like tear up here. It's like, because the words from the board is just echoed. I mean, Gresham's not even near 82nd, but they're talking about 82nd Street like it was their own. And I think it's because they embraced Division Street, which is still, we get excited when we see the FX line come through. So thank you for your work, and just thank you. Any other comments from the board? Okay. Is there a motion to approve? I know where I am this time. Oh, I did? It has been moved in second, and we've had comments. All in favor, say aye.
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 Yay! Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll stay up here for one more and
We do have
if needed.
our last resolution. Okay, if we're going to step away, you got to vote. Yes. Okay. For our last resolution, and I don't want to lose any more places, the board will convene as the TriMet Contract Review Board, TCRB, to consider Resolution 250316, authorizing an exemption for competitive bidding requirements for construction manager general contractor services for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. General Manager, do you have any comments on this resolution?
Thanks, President Lewis. Members of the board, if approved, the exemption from low bid solicitation requirements would allow TriMet to use a competitive request for proposal to select the most highly qualified firm as the construction manager general contractor for the 82nd Avenue Transit Project. To date, regional partners include Metro, TriMet, the City of Portland, ODOT, and Clackamas and Multnomah County. They've collaborated on initial planning and design phases of the project. As the project moves into the 30% design phase, TriMet is prepared to post the RFP for the CMGC. The selection contractor will establish design constructability and greater cost certainty between the 60% design stage and 100% of construction plan, and provide construction services for the project. The 82nd Avenue project is a complex corridor and requires a contractor that can manage strict budgets and schedules while maintaining traffic operations during construction. As the competitive RFP process allows for consideration of factors other than price when selecting this contractor, it will allow TriMet to select a CMGC with the skill and experience necessary to address the complexities of this project. The cost of the CMGC delivery approach has been accounted for in the project budget for both development and construction, and I recommend your approval.
Okay, is there a motion to approve Resolution 250316?
Oh, so moved.
Thank you. Thank you, and there is a second. Thank you. It's been moved and second. Does anyone wish to comment before we vote? Director Frisbee, anything?
No, I'm so restrained.
Oh, okay. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for your time before us today with all the good news on 82nd. I'd like to remind the board at this time that at our next meeting, we will consider a resolution to adopt some updated rules for the TCRB board. So this is a time for us to revisit. I know we've had lots of comments, feedback, especially Director Kellogg as well. So in our board packets for this meeting, we will receive just a one-page outline of the proposed changes, a copy of those rules and current rules that we have issued since 2024. So there has been changes. We should have all the time, as well as please take time to review these proposals before the meeting. So that's one, and it's huge. So make sure it's already posted. There will be staff presentation at the April meeting on the updated TCRB rules. However, if you have any questions in advance, please reach out to the general manager, to staff, or to me to let us know. So it's huge. Take time to look at it before we come to the meeting. That concludes our formal business meeting for today. Our regular meeting will be Wednesday, April 23rd, here in our board room at 1 Main Place. At this time, the board's business meeting is adjourned. I got that part right. Thank you. Okay. However, we have a briefing. We're going to take a break, 15-minute break, and then we have a briefing on the final version of our business plan with Alan Lato. Okay. Grab food.
The actions that are in this plan are all, really supporting that vision of a safe, convenient, and sustainable mobility options and our mission to provide safe, convenient, reliable, accessible, and welcoming for all services. The rest of it, there have been some grammatical improvements, some simplifications in terms of like taking out that long list of acronyms that were all spelled out on the page anyway, and just another piece of paper in there that didn't feel that important anymore. But the rest of it is essentially, as you saw, with those small changes. And at this point, this would be the final version. This will go up on the web. We'll be working to this and to Director Frisbee's comments, as we continue to flesh out our 2030 efforts, the future versions of the business plan will reflect even more of that structure. The actions reflect that now, but the structure and kind of the way we think about it will be more reflected in this business plan. We're really thinking of the business plan as the implementation document of that strategic effort, so that there's no distance between those two. With that, that's all I had to present. Sorry.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
I know I'm supposed to be running away, but I got a question, of course. Alan, thank you for that incredibly time-efficient presentation. I'm wondering, and forgive me, I didn't get a chance to dig through this draft of the business plan, but is there a section in it about the way the transit stimulates the local economy and regional economy?
There is a little bit of, there's a flavor of that, obviously, in some of the accomplishments and in some of the measures in terms of, if you look, there's just 3 pages of measures now instead of what used to be many more. But one of them is things like access to retail, access to jobs. And so that support of being able to get people to the places where they see opportunity, but also where they can shop and get their needs met, are all reflected in there. And then, of course, the actions speak to things like supporting transit-oriented development, looking at opportunities for improving service in places that allow better access to that, and all of that supporting sort of the prosperity of the region.
Sure, okay. Yeah, it feels like an increasingly important thing for us to focus on emphasizing, particularly as we start to think about, where our funding, the bulk of our funding at the state level comes from, right? So just from a communications and I guess talking points level, I'd love to see more language about, and it's not even stuff we have to make up. We know this is legitimized and substantiated in the deepest of ways at every level, from the federal level, regional level, local level. We know that transit is good for our economy, it's good for business, it's good for individuals and families. It saves folks money that they can then go and use in other ways, whether it's saving that money or spending that money in their communities. So having that as a top line message, I think, would be fantastic, even if it's not one of the concrete outcomes that we're listing in those boxes. I think it would be fantastic for us to start orienting towards that.
Great, thank you. I really resonate with that, and I think it can be in both in terms of the story we tell, but also in the numbers we look at.
Absolutely.
Okay, I do have one. Usually when I go to review your report, well, the business plan, there's always a shortage of what comes from the public. So can you just elaborate, when you had the, hearings that was posted, what you heard? You did mention that there was feedback.
Yeah, I'm hoping that what we're seeing is we do a big push on public outreach in the fall around things like service plan and all of that. And I'm hoping what we've done is appropriately reflect people's interests, so that we're not hearing a lot on the business plan. It's also true that the business plan is a fairly internally focused document. It's something that we are trying to understand, in terms of outreach with folks. Okay, what do you want in terms of service? What do you want in terms of
Right.
that kind of thing? But then the business plan is focused on how do we develop that? How do we produce that? Not, okay, do you want this line or do you want this line? That's a very different conversation. And so it is not unexpected that we don't get huge amounts of comments on the business plan as a document. What we are trying to do is make sure that the kinds of comments we get throughout the year are reflected in the business plan. And that's not just my job, but the job of my whole team and all the folks I talk to across the agency in pulling this together to say, what are we hearing from our public in addition to, what are the dollars saying? What is the production? What are the numbers saying?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I have one
Yes.
thing to add, and this is really about the communication part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It is true that really dense business plans are really not digestible by most people. But there are more and more technology solutions that make them digestible. So there are a lot of products now that can take really thick, dense PowerPoints and actually distill them into brief blog posts, brief videos, translate it into multiple languages using AI, and but all with the idea of helping people to access more digestible information. I know of a couple of those options, but we've also, I've seen some very effective visual planning communication tools that can get across really complex concepts and ideas, but have them in a more visualized format. So it could be something interesting to explore in the future, either communicating parts of the finalized business plan or trying to solicit feedback into elements that would be useful for you to get feedback into.
Absolutely. And I think we have a real opportunity to do that as we flesh out the 2030 efforts, and that helps us put together sort of the big picture. Right. I think the challenge with the business plan is not its complexity. It's just there are so many actions, and so at the top level, it's fairly easy to summarize. It's the details that are a little harder to dig into.
Okay. Any other questions? It's just a side note on what Director Graham said. Is our use of AI. It would be good for the board to take notes on how we use AI. I have not a clue for this transit agency, but I know Director Aaron just gave a lot of good areas, because I know we use it extensively in education. But I think it would be good for a board update on how we utilize it.
We'll follow up, and I'm going to follow up with
Yeah.
Director Aaron, Director Graham, on the visual communication tools that she's using as well.
Yeah, that would be
I'll
great.
get JC and I and Claire and team will
Do
get
that.
together and follow up.
I will mention though on AI, I do understand we have an internal policy on AI.
Yes.
Shelley's team spearheading that, and again, tying back to the conversations I've had at APTA conference with other legal professionals at agencies, the fact that we have a policy on this is where light years ahead in other agencies when they're scrambling whether folks can, designer or any functions within an agency can use this or not. So hopefully as we discover more tools that are out there, that will become a part of our framework.
Got it.
And just on that note, really quickly, loved what Director Graham said there. Completely agree with what Director Kim just said as well. AI is an incredibly powerful tool for information synthesis too, on a policy level. Like when we start thinking about digging through best practices and precedent on a national or international level, it just allows both individuals and entities, large-scale agencies like ours, to work far more efficiently and get a lot more done than was otherwise possible just even 2-3 years ago. So I think we'd be prudent to continue positioning ourselves and our agency at the forefront of the ethical and applicable uses of that type of technology.
I've got notes, so we'll definitely be following up.
Okay, thank you. Director Frisbee, are you there?
I am, thank you. And I don't have any comments at this time, other than I feel like my life is full of people who are trying AI in interesting ways, and I must confess, it makes me feel a little bit like a technophobe.
Thank you. I understand exactly what you mean. I'm just, especially in the world of education and academia, it's overwhelming. Anything else? Can we, Director Frisbee, can we have your lunch that's here? Yeah.
Yes, you can. I feel like Alan deserves it, maybe.
Oh, okay,
Alan,
you're the winner of the hour.
We can have the albacore tuna sandwich that I swapped with Frisbee's.
There we go.
So,
I will note to Director Kim's comment that we did have, or at least I was able to participate in a great training program on, or training session on AI use and, how to use its capabilities, but also be careful about it and make sure we're not taking credit for anything that AI did for us.
Yes, yes. On that note, hearing from staff, we're done. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Director Frisbee, for your lunch.
Thank you. Thank you, Alan.